everybody. Good morning. It is the Rise and Grind Morning Show on a Sunday. Going to wrap up week one. If you believe Sunday is the kickoff to the new week, then week one is over. Biggest question I have in my inbox is, who is our center? And even crazier, someone's been listening. Why do we have so many right tackles?
Crazy, man. You sound insane. Do you realize that? You fucking crazy, man. You sound insane. Do you realize that?
Oh, I know, but I've been called worse up here on a Sunday morning trying to talk Lions while everyone's probably getting ready to go to church or whatever you do on Sundays. I'm skipping the whole damn day. And I'm taking care of the things that I need to take care of. We got some big announcements coming out later on this evening. If it already hasn't come out, make sure you guys visit All 22's YouTube today. He has a major announcement. And we'll be doing something later on in the week. Maybe he'll pop in tomorrow or Tuesday. Not real sure yet. But big announcement for All 22, man. Very, very happy to be included in the project. As well as super excited for his growth and expansion, talking NFL football. So yesterday, I went down memory lane for a moment. I happened to, it was kind of weird. I'm driving, just going to get some groceries, and I take a look at my phone, had a message, and someone sent me my old video on Al-Quadin Muhammad. Last year, this time, when the Lions brought him back. Not only was my whole setup different, I had the big boom mic and I had the SM7 DB mic, which is good mic. Don't really care for that mic anymore. But anyway, I started listening to myself. I said, you know what? Why not? Let's see what I said last year. Some great points I think were made. You be the judge. Go watch it for yourself. I think I posted it in the community chat. But I made some points about AQM and the depth of this Lions defense. And I said that this was going to be, one of the better signings that we had all year. AQM got off to a light start in 2024 simply because he was snatched up, thrown right into the fray, and kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. And then last season when we brought him back, I felt it was such a great signing that our defensive front was going to be so good. And they were until we started getting picked off, right? I mean, injury after injury after injury. But AQM went on to have the 9th or 10th most sacks in the league last season. It just revalidates the work that we do here. I'm not bragging. I'm just I'm happy that sometimes the work bears fruit. And I feel like I'm trying to provide good information for everybody. It's not always right, but I try to be accurate. And AQM was, if you go back and you want to do this hindsight 2020 game, was one of the best free agency pickups that we had last season. So when I look at this season, and I didn't really do, I don't think I really did a week one recap like I'm doing right now last year. But when I take a look at what the Lions have done through the initial surge, let me pause myself for a moment. I need to get back to doing what I normally do. First, I want to say good morning. Welcome into Rockhound Detroit Lions. Appreciate you guys for joining me this morning on the Rise or Grind Morning Show. Got a lot of wonderful people in the chat already. Of course, Grandma Trace just waking up, finally getting an opportunity to get some rest. Hope you're feeling better. And who else is in here? We've got Dwayne Keene, Kevin, Robert, Brian Brady, David, Crash Out Syndicate. What is that? YOOPERLITES, good morning, man. Attila, Shane, Raw B's in the house, good morning. I might turn on phone lines this morning. I haven't decided yet. Laney Lane, and for some reason I can't go back any further. There you go. Let me change something here. I still can't see. There we go. Mike P. Is that a different username, Mike P? Good morning. Hopefully that's the real Mike P. Looks like a different username. Just let me know in the mods chat if you guys have changed your names so I can keep my eyes on it. We don't want actors. Bruce, good morning, Bruce. And then man, look, I gotta say huge thank you to everybody. Huge thank you to everybody. Let me see if I can throw this up on the screen real quick. Oh, you know what? I can't because it shows people's emails. Can't do that. I'm not going to dox 250 people. Okay, scratch that idea. I'm just going to read it off. So in the last couple weeks, March, I've been doing this thing where we're giving away 6 months free on DetroitFootballJournal.com. And since March 1st, I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 6, 7, 8, 9, 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 50. 57 new subscribers on DetroitFootballJournal.com. It's amazing growth just in a couple of weeks, and just simply posting it through Substack and through Twitter a little bit. And I haven't even hit Google. Like, I haven't done any ads. I haven't done any promotions. I haven't done anything. And I'm not going to just yet. I'll wait. Maybe I'll do some around the draft. But thank you for sharing it, for getting it out there, and for subscribing and being part of my journey through media and my journey through hopefully one day becoming a full-fledged scout at some point. That's the goal. At some point, I got a long way to go. But anyway, good morning to everybody. Let's get into this. So what I was saying is, last year I really didn't do like a full week one recap. Looks like Nightbot's at it already. And this year I figured that I should, because when I look at the initial, surge of the 2026 NFL free agency period that is now really concluded after week one, I think the national media fixates on the massive, cap crippling contracts, right? Winning in March, which is what Brad Holmes has told you back in 2021. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that because it's going to cripple my team and it's going to cripple our future. And that doesn't make any sense. He's operating strictly in a defined data-backed acquisition model. How do you make your team better? Focusing on depth, saving the draft for hopefully, a few starters every single year, and then pulling the trigger on maybe a couple more free agents between now and next Sunday. I'm still thinking there's going to be a couple more. There's still a couple of names that have not been acquired yet by anybody. And then you got to think about Taylor Decker. I mean, You look at that deal by. I'll try to pull it up. Rasheed Walker. And it makes you wonder. It really makes you wonder what was going through Taylor Decker's head. Because the APY that he was supposed to get was around 20.5, 21 million a year. And now he just signed what, a $10 million deal? Is that accurate? Is that what I'm reading? That he just signed a $10 million deal? Like that's nuts. I mean, not only would the APY be half as to what he was supposed to get, but Taylor Decker was probably thinking that he was going to get close to the money that he was already going to get paid, as he was under contract for about 20.3. So I got to ask the question then, to Rasheed Walker or to Taylor Decker, are you willing to come back now on a cap saving deal to finish what you started and to give this offense a leader, right? Someone that can help lead this offensive line through its transitions, and somebody that can still play at a decent rate. I mean, he's not the Taylor Decker that he used to be. He may think so, but the tape shows a much different story. And if he's healthy and he can stay healthy an entire season, I think that he can give the Lions, a small boost. Nothing major. And then for $10 million, that still may be a little bit too rich. The Lions already sacrificed about 9.5 or 9.6, whatever the number was, by releasing him. And so maybe, that looks like a $2 or $3 million deal now on a 1-year deal to come back based on what he's already going to get paid this year. I don't know the cash number. I just know the cap hit number based on bonuses and everything else that he's already been paid. That would be the cap number, not the cash number. So Rasheed Walker, if he's legit had signed or is signing a $10 million deal, then that tells me that Taylor Decker has probably outvalued himself and maybe made a mistake, allowed his ego to get in front of business and finishing what he started with one team and going to the Super Bowl this year. Because I'll tell you what, I would feel, maybe dirty is the wrong word, but I wouldn't feel good if we go and win a Super Bowl. I mean, trust me, I'm going to feel great. But if we go win a Super Bowl this year and Taylor Decker's on the sideline somewhere on a different team. And I think sometimes you have to put the team, all the time, you really need to put the team above all else. And if you really want to go win a Super Bowl for the city of Detroit, dude, you've got enough money. Like what is this really about? You have the money. You're set for generations. Go win a Super Bowl so maybe you can get a gold jacket. Because right now, you're way far away from something like that. But there is a possibility that you could get a gold jacket if you had a Super Bowl ring to one of those hands. And he did it in Detroit. So here we are, the end of week 1. I think the mandate has been clear from the jump. I've said it from the jump, and I'm sticking with it. You replace the departing veterans. You stabilize the depth chart with cost-controlled assets. You preserve the primary salary cap space for imminent internal extensions and emergencies. Brad always operates with an emergency fund. He's done it every year that he's had the cap available to do that. So I want to go through each player and kind of maybe answer the question or talk about it. What does this acquisition, mean to the roster as far as starter, depth? Where are we? And I would say that right now, the offensive line is actually looking sneaky good, I guess is a great great way to describe it. It is sneaky good right now, and it could get a whole lot better through the draft. There's not much available in free agency. There really wasn't. I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah yesterday for a brief moment at one of his podcasts, and he kind of said the same thing that I've been saying for a couple weeks now, that free agency this year it looked like it was going to be better than it was. There was some, premium positions that were taken at high dollar amounts, but very few. Very few. This free agency period wasn't that great. There's just not enough to go around in the NFL this year, which means you're not going to overspend. You're not going to waste resources just, snatching up a player just to have a player fill a roster spot. That would be silly. It would be wasteful, and it would be almost arrogant for a team to just do that when it doesn't make sense. It doesn't help the end goal. So we're going to start with Cade Mays, because one of the biggest free agency positions for the Lions this year was the center position. Everyone felt that, Brad needed to do something here. Tyler Linderbaum was the name that a lot of fans kind of, stuck at the top of their bingo card. I did not, as much as I thought that it would be great to have the number one center in the league. I think I was pretty honest with you guys up front to say that, the money was going to be too much. When I started floating numbers out there up to $25 million, you all thought I was crazy. The dude got $27 million. He got $2 million more than I expected at the very tippy top of the scale. And I thought at $23 million that the Lions could have been players. And later reports had suggested that the Lions may have been players until the Raiders went in and kiboshed the whole thing for everybody. So Cade Mays is brought in, and it was almost instantly after the Raiders announced their move with Tyler Linderbaum that Cade Mays' deal was made, official until it could be officially put in on Wednesday afternoon. Contract is 3 years, $25 million, $14 million guaranteed, so pretty safe contract. Now, Mays does represent, I believe, the most significant financial investment so far in this offseason, and probably will be the most significant financial investment for Brad this year. He's operating as the direct replacement for Graham Glasgow from multiple perspectives. Mays has only logged about 1,200 snaps at center for the Carolina Panthers over the past 2 seasons. He hasn't surrendered 1 sack. He's produced a 98.6 pass blocking efficiency metric, which is insane. And he is highly dependable, on the interior as a pass protector. His run fits, different story, right? The run blocking is different. Like, he's not as good there. As far as the depth chart is considered, I think a lot of fans are penciling him in right now, and analysts, as the day one starter for the Detroit Lions, that he anchors the middle of this offensive line immediately. And that's where I'm going to hit the pause button. And the reason why is because I see a major, not really an issue, but I see something developing here. We'll just say that. The departure of Graham Glasgow created a need, right? An immediate need, immediate void, of course. Lions needed to cut some fat out of the contracts or out of the salary cap. They also needed to get a lot younger. They did that with Cade Mays, essentially paying Cade Mays what you were about to pay Graham Glasgow, and then extending him, a couple more years, right? So you turn the Graham Glasgow contract into a Cade Mays contract. Very smart. But while that $25 million contract that was handed to Mays suggests that he is the locked-in starter, I think the tape and the snap counts tell a different story. I think that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have now engineered a multi-layered positional battle. And it's exactly what they said that they were going to do at the Combine. It's exactly what Dan said he was going to do at the end of the year press conference. And Brad Holmes at his end of the year press conference also illuminated to the fact that they were going to bring in competition. So you have these multiple layers of really good football players that are also versatile. And I think that while you're bringing in probably one of the most violent, mentally sharp interior offensive linemen in Cade Mays, I also believe with the players that are currently on this roster, the players that they brought in through a trade with David Montgomery, and what is potentially out there for the Lions in the draft, I don't think that there's anything penciled in right now. And I'd be willing to bet that if I were to get Dan or Brad to come on this podcast, it won't happen, that they would probably say the same thing. That while Cade is leading from the front, they are expecting competition. That is going to keep every player on their toes headed into OTAs or training camp, whatever they plan to attend. So let's start with Cade Mays. Now, the case for center for Cade, the front office, Brad Holmes, they didn't guarantee $14 million to just a backup. Okay, I will agree with that. But then again, I'm going to go back and I guess reiterate what Dan has always said. He doesn't care where you're drafted, and he definitely doesn't care how much money you're making. If you are not cutting it, you're getting cut or you're being relegated to the depth chart. That won't be the case for Cade Mays. I think that Cade Mays is going to find a spot on this offensive line no matter what. Mostly because he's a really good player. He's a really good athlete, but he's young. And he's inexperienced. Yes, it's possible to be inexperienced. He hasn't been playing center his whole life. He's been doing it for less than 18 months. So he possesses the immediate upper hand in I guess regarding the scheme, familiarity, and the veteran processing. He has all that. The reality is logging only 1,200 career snaps at center for a 27-year-old vet is relatively light to declare him the undisputed champion right now at the position. I think that he operates best as a high-level interior flex player rather than just a pure specialized pivot at center, because that's what his previous position was at Carolina. The contract dictates that, he's probably going to get first crack. But then again, what about the leash that will be strictly monitored on Cade Mays? If there's any struggle, any waiver whatsoever, the Lions have just put themselves into one of the best positions I have seen in the last 5 seasons on the interior of this offensive line. Now, on the outset of the 2025 offseason, I had mentioned something multiple times. And I used a term that I think resonated with a lot of fans, and that is irresponsible. I've said from day one, when this season ended, it would be irresponsible for Brad Holmes to rely on Tate Ratledge moving to center. That it would be irresponsible for Brad Holmes to rely on Christian Mahogany and Miles Frazier to be the starting guards. That if Brad was going to do this right, he was going to get rid of the elder statesman in the room. He was going to cut the contracts, and he was going to bring in competition like he said he was going to do, but he was going to overload this room with competition and versatility. And he did. He did in a big way. So the reality check for me is when you bring in players like Juice Scruggs, right? Another player that has proven versatility. Former second-round pick. Now, he hasn't played a ton the last 3 seasons, primarily because he's battled some foot injuries, and that limited his ability on the field. And he's only played center in 1 season, which I believe was 2024. So Scruggs provides verified multi-positional NFL tape, which I've watched a little bit of it, and I think that when he's healthy, he's good. When he's not healthy, he's bad. Or maybe perceived non-health or unhealth is what I'm seeing. The tape didn't look good at all. That foot clearly was bothering him. But he logged 568 snaps at center in 2024, combined with 910 snaps at guard across 23 and 24 as well. So is he the most battle-tested interior lineman in this specific competition? Pretty close. He has more snaps, 3 seasons under his belt. The reality is, I believe that he possesses the exact processing speed required to call the blocking protections in the offensive system that Drew Petzing is going to put together. He is not a developmental project. He just needs to stay healthy. If Mays falters or gets injured, well, then he is forced to kick back into center, or he can kick back out to guard, depending on where he is. I think that Scruggs is the immediate plug-and-play option that could keep Jared Goff clean through the center of this offensive line. But then again, here we are. We have a premium interior swing with high-level backup ability. So you have Mays, call him starting center. Scruggs, immediate backup at center. Also, right or left guard. Now, when I looked at Juice Scruggs' history, let's see if I can get this up real quick. We take a look at Juice Scruggs' history here. You'll see what I'm talking about. And then I'll pull Cade Mays up here too. 2022, he has nothing, right? Because he wasn't in the league. 23. He only had 51 snaps. I know you can't see the bottom because my thing's in the way, but let me get rid of that. Yeah, we'll just throw it over here for now. So, 51 snaps in 2023. In week 12. 72 in week 13. 57, 82, 87, 77, 67, 60, 53, and 52. Where was he playing? Left guard. Left guard. So, primary position, left guard in 23. 2024. He comes in, starts right away in week 1 at center. He goes from left guard to center in 1 year. He played in just about every single week, a high volume of snaps, and then he started missing a lot of time after week 10. Right? At the center position, he was kicked back to left guard. Right here. Week 10, 11, 12, and 13, he goes back to left guard. Week 14, 15, 16, and 17, he didn't play at all. That's when the foot issue started to bother him. So during this season, it was 568 snaps at center, 250 at left guard, 126 at right guard. So fairly versatile interior defender, former second-round pick. I have not evaluated his college tape yet, but from what I've seen, this dude has immediate displacement power. Scruggs is, in my opinion, a very interesting option for the Lions across this interior front. Okay, let's take a look at Cade Mays. Let's go back to 2022. Cade Mays came in as a fullback for a few games, and then played right guard 33 snaps, and then on special teams. He had 98 snaps overall. 6th round draft pick. 2023. Cade Mays, again, starts his season at right guard. He plays in week 2 at right guard, couple of snaps in week 4. Looks like weeks 5 and 6, he played the majority of snaps at at left guard. And then week 12, he goes back to right guard. Week 14, 15, 16, and 17, he goes back to left guard. All over the place. Tells you he's a backup, right? He's filling in for injured players. 483 snaps on the season, no center snaps yet. And then for some reason in 2024, he's moved to center in week 8. Now, I'm going to take a guess because I didn't research this yet. I'm just going to assume that somebody got injured. And maybe multiple players were injured. And they forced Cade Mays to go in and play center. He had about 12 snaps in the first game, week 8, then 53, 60, 62, 70, 71, 55, 47, and 67 for a total of 502 snaps at center, half a season in 2024. No sacks given or allowed, excuse me. Then in 2025, Cade Mays is the non-starter in week 1. I don't know if he was injured or something, but he didn't play in week 1 outside of special teams. So he must not have been injured. He got 2 snaps in. Week 2, he played a handful of snaps at center. And then week 3 is when he was given the reins again. And then he missed week 12, 13, and 14, and 9. One of those was a bye week. So he missed at least 3 games in 2025, according to PFF. And then finished out the season in 2025, the last 5 weeks, into the wild card. 801 snaps combined, 793 at center. So about 1,200 snaps is what Cade Mays is bringing to Detroit at the center position. Well, then we have another guy in this roster, Michael Neese, who is also a center. Cade Mays, Juice Scruggs, and Michael Neese. So far, those 3 players all play center. His snap counts, I'm not just going to go through it all because he doesn't have much. But on the bottom here, you can see he had 34 snaps in 24, 12 total in 25. Where those snaps were, I don't even care. So, what are you seeing now? I guess that's the question that I have for you. Are you seeing a player that in Cade Mays is going to come in and lock down the center position? I don't. I don't see a player that immediately comes in. Doesn't mean he's not going to. Doesn't mean that he's not going to outright win the job this year. But what I see is competition. Right now he's going up against Michael Neese. That shouldn't be a battle. Juice Scruggs will be a battle. And then we've got this other guy, Seth McLaughlin. Well, what's interesting about this is, a lot of fans had mentioned bringing in Connor Lew this year in the draft. Connor Lew was one of the best centers in college the last couple of seasons. Ended the season or had a significant injury last year. Didn't finish the season from what I remember. I could be wrong there, but I know he had a major injury. ACL, Achilles, something. PCL, something. So Connor Lew was in the second round, and I said, there's no way he's going to stay there. There's no way a team's going to select him in the second round. And in my case study was Seth McLaughlin, Ohio State's number 1 center, one of the best centers in the league, entering the draft in 2024. Also suffered a major injury heading into the draft, went undrafted. He goes undrafted and ends up with the Cincinnati Bengals. That I guess they released him or whatever. The Lions signed him to a futures deal. So here he is. Now he has had exactly 0 snaps in the league so far. But he is a player. If we go back to 2024, take a look at the you're 100% wrong, Joseph Murdoch. Learn football, buddy. Or sit back, relax, get your contact to some intelligence that I'm about to spill. Go back to 2024 and you look at Seth McLaughlin here. Played for Alabama for 4 seasons, then moves to Ohio State. He had a significant amount of snaps at center, and he was rated as one of the best centers in college. Now, I don't know what happened. I don't know when he exactly injured himself. I don't know if it was during the championship game, or it might have been the championship game, because he didn't log any grades or any snaps at all in 2024 postseason. So be that as it may, if you go back and look at his previous history, he has 21, 22, and 23. He has history in the postseason with Alabama, nothing with Ohio State. So highly experienced player, right? Has a ton of experience, 6'4", 305 pounds. His grades are phenomenal for a center. 1 penalty in 2024. Let me find his blocking grades. No sacks allowed in 2024. No hits allowed in 2024. Only 7 hurries allowed in 2024. Let's go back to 23 at Bama. Not Ohio State. So at Bama, he played 100% of the snaps, about 100% of the snaps. 1 sack, only 4 hits, and 7 hurries. So over 2 seasons in college, he only allowed 1 sack. And this is prior to his injury. So we're talking about a player that, had he not been injured, Seth McLaughlin right now is probably a starting center on any one of 32 teams in the NFL. And I think that is ill-defining of exactly what Brad Holmes has created. Let me give you a quote here by Field Yates, ESPN. He says, when you evaluate the first wave of the 2026 free agency, the Detroit Lions' approach to the center position is a masterclass in roster efficiency. Paying Cade Mays $8.3 million annually while holding Juice Scruggs and Seth McLaughlin provides them absolute leverage. I just found this quote this morning. I was writing an article on this at 5 a.m. It says they are not beholden to a single player. They built an entire interior depth chart for the price that some teams are paying for 1 starting guard. So to tell me that Brad Holmes has not made this roster better, I'm sorry.
You fucking crazy, man. You sound insane.
Learn
You realize
football.
that?
Because clearly you don't know what it is. You don't know how it's done. You've never managed a team. And if everybody else is thinking that Brad Holmes is performing an absolutely masterclass, and these are people that have been around the game of football their entire life, who are we to say that he's not? Because some content creator said that he wasn't? You can miss me with the unintelligence, the crash outs. Because it's just the same crap every year, every season. The same SOL every year, every season from the same people. It never gets better. People say that I never say anything negative about Brad Holmes. That's not true. And then the other thing is, the people that continually peddle the BS about Brad have never said one thing good. Ever. They'll never hold a candle to the accountability that I hold with Brad Holmes and the positivity, truth-telling about the real situation. So here we are. We got Juice Scruggs. We got Cade Mays. We have Seth McLaughlin. Now, Seth McLaughlin, before that devastating injury derailed his final collegiate season, I just can't remember exactly when it was. It dropped him completely out of the 2024 NFL draft. And where I was going with that is Connor Lew, who I said should follow that same trajectory. Maybe he ends up in a 4th, 5th, or 6th round with somebody that wants to take a flyer on him. Maybe they have some extra draft picks and they can see the potential future for him. You know, I could see that. I could see Brad Holmes doing that, to be honest with you. I could totally see if Connor Lew makes it to the end of the 4th round, Brad's probably going to go get him. And the reason why is you can take a center and move him to guard easier than you can take a guard and move him to center. And then you stash him on NFI for the entire 2026 season, and then you have open camp competition again next season. That would be the smart play by Brad Holmes. Super smart play. We'll see if he does it. Now, McLaughlin was evaluated, like I said, as the premier center prospect in the class coming into 2025. He was operating on futures deals and is the ultimate high reward stash for the Detroit Lions. Because if this dude's healthy this year, I'm telling you right now, he's going to be much better than Cade Mays. He's going to be much better than Juice Scruggs. He'll be night and day difference better from Tate Ratledge. Not at guard, but at center. The reality is he has not yet proven himself since his injury. So I got to pause a little bit. The explosive kinetics, are they still there? Are they intact? We don't know. He hasn't gone against NFL power yet. So he needs live practice reps. He needs an entire offseason program to rebuild his lower body and his anchor, and that's what he's getting in Detroit right now. He provides that exceptional long-term ceiling, but no immediate week 1 reliability in this race. But we'll see what happens this summer. If he's ready to rock and roll, he should be. He's had plenty of time to recover. And like I said, Michael Neese, the roster bubble, he's more than likely not going to make the roster. He's going to be a camp body. He'll be one of the first ones cut when you're looking at bringing in a different position, whether it's on the offensive line or on the defensive side of the football. The reality is what Brad Holmes has just done. I agree with Field Yates. 1,000%. You don't have to sink any investment from a day one starting perspective into Cade Mays right now. You are going into this with open eyes, open ears, and open competition. And that is a masterclass on how you build a roster for youth, depth, competition, and to go win a damn Super Bowl is exactly how you do it. So for the people in the back that are saying that Brad Holmes is not making this roster better, he just went from a huge deficit since Frank Ragnow to now potentially having the number 1 center in the draft in 2025, the most undervalued center in Cade Mays, who so far has put on his own masterclass, learning the position over 18 months. And that is where I have concern, is that he's only been doing this for 1,200 snaps. There's a huge difference from a guy that has done it 10,000 times and a guy that's done it 1,200 times. I have well over 10,000 hours on YouTube. Someone that is just starting may not understand how to do things yet. And guess what? I'm still learning every day. I'm still gaining valuable information, and I've learned new things along the way, and it's going to be a game changer this year for what I'm doing. But for players in the NFL, the more time you have spent at one position, the better you're going to be until you hit your ceiling. And Seth McLaughlin hasn't even touched the ceiling yet. He just has to get up out of the training room this year and go prove it. So this morning's conversation, and the reason why my first question is, are we settled at center? Do we have competition with a bona fide center? Yes, we do. Cade Mays is, number one for now. And then we have one more wrinkle. And this is the player that I've said numerous times, it would be irresponsible again for Brad Holmes to rely on Tate Ratledge to move to center. Why? Well, because of what I just said. He has 10,000 hours at right guard. Why would you take someone that has 0 hours at center, or maybe a couple hours, as he did it last year in training camp, and then try to force him to learn a position? Now, let me give you another quote, because this kind of explains what I also feel to a degree. Brian Baldinger, I think a lot of you would respect him for his vision, his immense amount of knowledge about football. Former football player himself, he says, I'm watching, quote, watching the tape on Tate Ratledge. And if Dan Campbell wants to experiment with him at center, it is going to be a heavy-handed physical transition. He is a pure guard who wants to completely displace defensive tackles. If they can teach him the snap-to-step mechanics, you are putting a massive, immovable object directly over the ball. It is exactly the type of aggressive trench strategy you expect from this Detroit Lions front office, end quote. I agree. Where I disagree is that I feel Tate Ratledge is better utilized as a guard. You have the opportunity to go out and get Connor Lew and stash him. You have the opportunity of going out and getting Jake Slaughter and transitioning him to guard. Right? I'm less confirmed now that the Lions are attacking the center position in the draft. Simply because we have 4.5 centers on the roster. Dane Brugler also said the Lions understood they could not afford to get physically exposed up the middle following the departure of Graham Glasgow and the previous retirement of Frank Ragnow. It's kind of weird. I never noticed that both of their names end in OW until now. That's kind of weird. But anyway, he says, quote, they bypassed the top of the market interior free agents to stockpile multiple starting caliber options. Whether it's Mays, Scruggs, or Ratledge transition, Holmes acquired cost-controlled assets that fit their heavy run parameters without blowing up their salary cap flexibility. Again, Dane Brugler, The Athletic, an extremely intelligent football analyst, is telling you that. I'm not telling you that, but I agree. If anything, I feel that Brad Holmes has absolutely done a masterful job so far. Now, I get it. A lot of you want the jackpot edge rusher. It's never going to happen. It was never, ever, ever part of the plan, and it'll never, ever, ever be part of the plan. Second-tier edge rushers is what you get on 28 out of 32 NFL teams. If you are lucky enough to get one that resides in the top 5 or even the top 10 out of 64 edge rushers in the league, there's no reason for you to heavily invest on the other side when the most important position on every defense is not the edge. There's two, I'd say, really important positions that will always outflank the edge position. That is what's happening in the center of your defense and in the back end of your defense. I told y'all 3 weeks ago, or whenever it was, 2 weeks ago, that my intel was that Brad Holmes was heavily evaluating, doing his homework, getting restructures done, and attacking cornerback or DB in this free agency period and linebacker. It just so happened that we brought back 2 of our linebackers, which give us 4 now. 3 or 4. 4. We have 4 linebackers now. We are short at least 2. And he went after very valuable commodities in McCreary and Christian Izien. So my intel was right. And thank you if you're listening right now. Appreciate it. And it is nobody local in Detroit. The former NFL exec. So, my evaluation so far. We've talked about Cade Mays. Let's get into Isaiah Pacheco for a moment. The Lions decided to trade and part with David Montgomery. A move that a lot of Lions fans were questioning. I myself thought 2 months ago it was the perfect opportunity to trade a player to gain some draft capital. I predicted the 4th and the 7th, as well as get yourself set up for the draft, which is going to be hot and heavy early on running backs, and then it's going to fall off. The Lions don't need to do that now. They don't have to go after a running back. Appreciate you, Robert Cook, just joining the Level 3 Elite Club. The coffee club, man. That's huge, man. Appreciate you. Let's get you lined up with something this morning. If I get time, I'll try to work on my audio. I'm loving it. Here's one.
Balls loose on the ground.
I forgot about that one. Balls loose on the ground. All right, let's get you lined up with, where is it, man? My Amon-Ra St. Brown or, yeah, we'll do Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra flips it out to Gibbs. He's to the house, baby. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Oh, that is beautiful.
You're right, Buster Scruggs. I do need a producer, brother. Trust me, I do. Trying to do all this stuff by myself it's not easy. I don't think a lot of people understand how tough it really is. It's tough. Anyway, big ups to you, man. Robert Cook, appreciate you. So Isaiah Pacheco, the Lions bring in Isaiah Pacheco. Now, let me see if I can get his stuff pulled up real quick. Or Isaiah Pacheco. I'm still unconfirmed on if he calls himself Isaiah or Isaiah or Izia. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't spent 2 seconds looking. Probably should by now. Let's bring him in. Now, we only use PFF to have a baseline conversation. We don't use PFF to have a hardline conversation. Now, what I really enjoyed about digging into Pacheco was the pass blocking. Like we went over this the other day. And I'm not going to go through it again and sell you on it this morning. But Isaiah Pacheco in his pass blocking is way better than what David Montgomery did. Appreciate everything that David Montgomery has done, but there is levels to this game in what Isaiah Pacheco does from a pass blocking perspective is far and away better and more consistent. They've all had their bad games, but it went to show last season where David Montgomery had a lot of bad games in the blocking department. It's not why he was brought in. You know, I think that he was brought in to be a running back that has to block, but he wasn't brought in to be a blocker. He was brought in to be a running back. And of course, you want all of your players to be able to block. Some are better than others. Pacheco is just has that vicious intent. You guys saw him during the press conference. This dude's amped all the time. He's got high energy, and he blocks the way that he runs. You know, he runs violent downhill. When he triggers, he triggers. And when he wants to take somebody out, he's going to take somebody out. And he sells out to do it. So you look at his pass blocking grades, average is 67.2. I don't really know how they get that number when the majority of his grades are in the mid-70s, but that's PFF for you. You know, over his career, he's been very, very consistent. In the upper 60s for his pass blocking grades. His rookie year wasn't so great. His run blocking grades have also been really consistent. Not to say that he's going to have a ton of opportunity to do that. We don't run a two-back system very often, but that could change this year. His offensive grade has slipped, but he also is coming back from, a nasty broken leg. So the Isaiah Pacheco that I'm hoping that we get back is the 2023 guy. right? The guy that, runs behind his shoulder pads and has great contact balance and leverage. He hits the hole with, like I said, that violent intent. And he's fast. He runs like a 4.37 40, or did prior to the broken leg. We'll see how fast he is now, but to have someone that is, 0.3 of a second faster than what David Montgomery is, that is only 10 pounds lighter and about the same size, that tells me that we're not losing a whole lot, we're gaining a lot more in Isaiah Pacheco. So the Lions do a couple of things in this free agency period that should open up your eyes to what the overall emphasis has been. And that is to be able to go into this draft and not pigeonhole yourself on having to draft a player. Now, what I'm going to tell you at the end of this, in just a few more moments, I'm going to get through a few more players, I'm going to get through them quick, is this draft is going to test Brad Holmes like it never has before. And I'm going to explain why the BPA, if Brad really operates from BPA, why this draft is going to test the limits. Isaiah Pacheco got a 1-year, $1.81 million contract. Now, with David Montgomery traded, like I said, the Lions required violent downhill bruiser to balance that backfield, someone that can block, right, in the pass game. Pacheco landed in Detroit on what you could consider, or many consider, a prove-it deal. It's a contender deal. He's coming to contend with the Lions to run to the Super Bowl. He didn't need a prove-it deal. There was probably 18 other teams that would have taken Isaiah Pacheco. He chose to come run with Jahmyr Gibbs. And he chose to come help the Detroit Lions get to a Super Bowl. And I thank him for that, because he's going to be needed this year. Now, he started 12 games at Kansas City last season, and his running style fits exactly the physical parameters that are demanded by head coach Dan Campbell. Now, on the depth chart, clearly he's number 2. He will operate as the designated power back alongside Jahmyr Gibbs. And what we are expecting out of Jahmyr Gibbs is, well, let's take a look at David Montgomery. What did David Montgomery provide to the Lions the last few seasons? All right. Shane Smith, I think you're 1,000% right, man. 1,000% right. Says flashy players don't play with edge. I like that. I want his stats. I don't want his snaps. All right, so here we go. David Montgomery. Let's just go right to the bottom so we can get through it, right? 408 total snap counts last year. 407 the year before. 555 when he arrived in Detroit. Isaiah Pacheco last season, 424. Broken leg in 24, so he only had 276. But in 2023, when he had his best season, 781 snap counts. It's a lot of work in a multi-back system that Kansas City runs. I think they had McKinnon back then, if I'm not mistaken. They might even have had Hunt back then, right? Maybe. I know they did last year, right? So what was his production like? Well, last season, again, getting back to form, he put up, where's his yardage? Where's the yardage? Oh, I'm in blocking still. I want offense. I want offense. Where's it at? Come on. Here we go. 462 yards, 3.9 average, 1 TD, no fumbles. Hasn't had a fumble in 2 years. He had 6 in total prior to 2024. Now, his fumble rate, obviously really, really high ranking because he doesn't fumble the football. The average yards after contact, 2.75. He had 10-plus explosive runs last season of 10-plus yards. He runs heavy zone and gap. He had one 15-yard breakaway. 27 first downs. David Montgomery. Oops. Nope. That one. There we go. Last season had 175 snap counts in the run game versus 139 here to Isaiah Pacheco. He put up 716 yards, 4.5 yards per attempt, so about 0.6 yards per attempt more than Isaiah Pacheco. Now, keep in mind that Isaiah Pacheco's touches were limited. They're also limited when you have a running quarterback, quarterback that will take your take your opportunities away. And he put up 8 touchdowns with 2 fumbles last year. So he definitely outproduced Pacheco, but last season was kind of an anomaly for Pacheco. If you go back to 2023 when he was fully healthy, he had 321 snaps, 1,248 yards, 4.4 yards per attempt, 10 touches or 10 TDs, and 3 fumbles on the year. If we get a player that is somewhere at least in the average of what he has done over his career, even including the years where he was injured, he's going to give us exactly the type of player that David Montgomery has been and where he fits into this offense. Does it mean that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a lot more production, a lot more snap counts, a lot more touches in the run game? Potentially. Or we might see where the Lions do something a little different this year. They might have a third back introduced, which could be Jacob Sailors, who I'm honestly thinking that this could be an opportunity. The Jacob Sailors is probably going to get about 10% of the touches. Sione Vaki could also get about 10% of the touches. It's going to be difficult to carry 4 running backs into the game, but Sione Vaki and Jacob Sailors both play on special teams, so their likelihood of being up on game day is likely. As long as they both stay healthy, I do believe that you're going to see some situations where either one of those 2 backs could be involved in the offense. And like I said, 10% total between the 2 or less. And I'm hoping that's not due to injury. It's more so getting them involved in doing something a little bit different and utilizing the weapons that you have on your offense. You got to pay attention to what I said. I didn't say Pacheco is Monty. It's not what I said. I said from an overall average, you should be able to get what you got out of David Montgomery. And quite honestly, Pacheco healthy is better than David Montgomery. I mean, it's proven. David Montgomery's best season was in 2023 with 1,198 yards and 15 TDs. Pacheco had 1,248 yards and 10 TDs. 321 snap counts to 272 snap counts. So, yes, he absolutely can be, and he's a way better blocker than David Montgomery ever has been. Next up, we'll talk about Roger McCreary, the cornerback. Huge pickup for the Lions. Roger McCreary brings instant credibility from a veteran perspective. He is going to turn that backfield, or he's going to stabilize that backfield, I think, instantly from day one. Doesn't mean that he's going to have a starting position on day one, but he could at 26 years old. I mean, this dude is still extremely young, and has been an enforcer in the backfields, throughout his career. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. I'm sorry, no, he didn't bounce around a little bit. Bounced around a little bit with his ability on the field, but I think that McCreary overall is going to push Terrion Arnold for that starting spot. I'm just going to throw out the wild, crazy take of the day. I think Terrion Arnold is on the hot seat. Now, I believe in Terrion Arnold's ability. I think that when you look at what has gone on this spring, or this winter, I should say, and with the recent statement by Calvin Shepard that Terrion Arnold needs to shut his mouth and start playing, right? To paraphrase. You bring in a guy like McCreary who can immediately stabilize this backfield. I mean, his grades have been pretty solid. I'm thinking that, yeah, again, I never said Monty. You got to listen, buddy. I'm thinking that McCreary is going to push him. And I think that Terrion Arnold could be trade bait. Now, there's going to be a lot of teams that are probably hands off unless the whole legal thing is totally cleared. And I think that the Lions are operating from the front right now as to where they don't want to be caught with their pants down. If something does happen with that whole scenario, that they don't lose a player and then, you know, they're SOL. They're shit out of luck. So could he be a trade? Possibly. Very possibly. Very, very possibly. I don't know why you would bring in a guy like McCreary if you're automatically giving Terrion Arnold the shot to start on day one. Taking a look at his defense, he's jumped around a little bit, right? Like I said, he's bounced around a little bit, but he's fairly consistent. I mean, his tackling is average. His coverage, that's where it bounces around. I mean, you go from a 60 to a 72 down to 58 to a 72. He's kind of had like in every other year been a good year. But the biggest thing that I've noticed, and I have to look into his injuries, is how did he start out as, you know, the starter in year one with Tennessee? And then by year three, I mean, he's relegated to only 652 snap count. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at 23. Let's see if he missed any games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7, 8, 9. He missed at least one game there. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So he missed at least 2 games. He missed at least 2 games in 2023. And his snap counts, 934. So not really a decline then. All right, let's take a look at 24. So that small decline was only due to a couple of games missed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, there's week 5. That could have been a bye week. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He missed 2 games there. Okay, so the lower snap counts could again be from a couple of games missed. It could also be more sub-package use. I'm going to have to go back, and watch some tape. I haven't watched a ton of tape on McCreary yet. I just know from watching from afar, dude's been a pretty good corner. Been a pretty good corner. Now, he's not a big ball hawker. He only has 3 career interceptions, and he's given up 11 TDs over 4 years, which, I mean, that's not bad at all. He had 7 his rookie year. He's only given up 2 TDs in each of the last 2 seasons. He's averaging about 9.9 yards per reception last year, 7.2 the year before. I mean, the fact that he only gave up 278 yards, I mean, that's not terrible. This is the number that matters the most to me, right? The reception percentage. 82.4 when targeted. That's pretty solid. There was a couple years ago where I think every Lions DB had a passer rating against of like 110 or higher. That's god-awful. That can't happen. So this is a significant improvement. In the run game, let's see if I can figure out what he does in the run game. Looks like he had a decent game against us in 2024. 2025. Let me go back to his defense. I want to see why. Okay, here we go. I wonder if he had a major injury last year and couldn't finish the season. I mean, it has to be, right? Because he didn't play after week 8. Oh, no, wait. We did this the other day. He was moved to L.A. at the trade deadline. Eight, 9, 10, 11. So he missed at least 2 weeks and then another 13, 14, 15, 16. So he missed at least 5 weeks last season. So that explains the low snap counts. Just sometimes when I do this stuff live, I just got to figure it out. Going to watch tape on him today. So for the Lions, for McCreary. Again, I think that this is an immediate upgrade. And again, it speaks to the information that I had prior to, the free agency period, that the Lions were going to go all in on DBs and linebackers. We haven't seen the linebacker move yet. And quite honestly, I think it's kind of come and gone simply from the fact that a lot of big deals kind of went out, and there's not a whole lot of linebackers that were even available. Hell, Bryce Huff even retired, which is nuts at 27 years old. He just called it quits. So I think the Lions may have missed their shot, but then again, they weren't going to sink $45 million into a linebacker when they have to pay Jack Campbell. So his profile this year, he's replacing potentially 287 slot snaps vacated by Amik Robertson. So right now I'm thinking that either he's going to replace Amik Robertson or he's going to push to the outside. Either or. He's been able to do both. And at 26 years old, this guy's battle tested. His grades are solid. I think he limits explosive plays really well. And he's going to trigger, I think, fairly aggressively in the run game based on the grades. I got to watch more tape. So there's a reason why he was brought in. And I would assume that his run defense is going to be spectacular. Otherwise, you're not a Detroit Lion in the DB room. They just don't bring in DBs that don't trigger in the run, against the run defense. They just don't. They never have, and I don't think they ever will. So as far as the depth chart fit, I would slot him as a starting nickel. Could push to the outside. Could. We'll see. I think it gives them flexibility at a minimum. All right, next guy we're going to talk about, Tyler Conklin. One of the more interesting pickups this year. Tyler Conklin didn't do anything. I think he had 7 receptions last year. Relegated, to the depth chart. He was behind Oronde Gadsden, the rookie that was getting a lot of opportunity ahead of him. But this is a guy with 127 career games. He's reuniting with, guess who? I don't know if any of you guys realize this. I don't know if anyone's even said this yet. Drew Petzing. Drew Petzing and Tyler Conklin have a relationship. So he's coming back with the understanding, or he's coming in with the understanding that he's going to bring in that heavy-handed inline blocking that he does so well at, and he's got secure hands. And he knows Drew Petzing in the scheme. So that is a huge opportunity for the Lions, bringing in guys that are able to be teachers as well as players out on the field. Now, as far as depth chart fit, it's kind of hard to put him at tight end number 2 simply because we have Brock Wright, but I'm putting him at tight end number 2 right now. I think he's going to get a larger majority of the share of snaps from the outset, and I think that Brock Wright will obviously be used in the blocking game quite a bit, but he provides absolute injury insurance too behind Sam Laporta in case something happens with Sam Laporta between now and week 1. If he's not back to himself or he's struggling a little bit coming back from injury, you now have another guy that can slide in. He's not Sam Laporta, but he's good for 400 or 500 yards if you were to target him as the number one tight end, receiving tight end. That's a good room right there. Brock Wright, Conklin, and Laporta. That is a great room. I would expect one more move here. Could be free agency, but probably the draft. There's a couple of players in the draft, and my number one target for the Lions right now, if you're considering a tight end, where I've seen Max Clare kind of projected to end up, if you have not watched any film on Max Clare, oh boy, yesterday I was amped. Max Clare is exciting to watch. And I'm just going to tell you this. When you go watch film on him today, go watch just some highlights. Just search YouTube up and look for some highlights. That's all you're going to be able to get anyway, unless you pay for certain publications and that I do. Just watch when he catches the football, and whenever he feels traffic, which, by the way, he's not afraid of traffic. how he immediately clutches like this. Immediately clutches. He catches that football, he brings it in, and he clutches immediately when he's going to the ground. This guy does not want to give up the football ever. Max Clare in Detroit is a game changer. I think the Lions can get him. I really do. I think that if you can get him in the third round, you've got to figure out a way to get up there and find him. Matter of fact, right now he's ranked somewhere in the late second, or I'm sorry, the early third to mid third, right around pick 75. Obviously, we know the Lions don't have anything between 50 and 108 or 118, whatever it is. Brad's going to do something. I'm telling you right now, Brad's moving up in this draft. If not once, at least probably twice. I think he's going to be moving up. And I'm not even totally out yet on him not moving all the way up to number 6. If Arvell Reese or David Bailey or Sonny Styles, if one of those players slips to number 6, I think Brad's going all the way up. And I've done the math. It's this year's first, and it's next year's first, and it's probably next year's third that gets it done. They'd probably want this year's fourth, this year's first, and next year's first, but that also gets it done. I know it sounds like a light amount, but based on the research, recent trades, that should get it done. Now, I don't want to give up a first-round pick, but I would give up a first-round pick for any one of those 3 in a heartbeat. All right, next up, Teddy Bridgewater. I'm just going to fly through this one because Teddy B's a coach. He's the second quarterback's coach on this team. I do not value Teddy B as a quarterback right now. I just don't. He's been away from the game, in and out of the game. He's not all in. You know, I think he's done coaching now. I think he got pissed off and kind of quit coaching after that whole thing of getting suspended. I don't know if he's going back or not. But after Kyle Allen departed to Buffalo, obviously we needed somebody to return. And Teddy B makes a lot of sense. Like I said, he's a coach, man. He's in Jared Goff's ear. He sees things. He knows things. He's an evaluator. And I think he's a motivator. He clearly did wonders with Jameson Williams. And so that's a smart move, but I don't think it's the only move. I think the Lions will bring in, it could be Peyton. There was another one that I was looking at yesterday, but I'll save that. It could be Peyton in round 6, right? One of our 6-round picks going out to a quarterback. I'd be cool with that. You know, if you get the 6th-round pick and you have Teddy B and you have Jared Goff, look, if Jared Goff were to have an issue, I'm not going to say the word, season's over anyway. If Teddy B runs a miracle, well, then great. But the season's over. So I'm less concerned. Most teams don't have a backup quarterback that can go run the ship and pull a Nick Foles and bring you to the Super Bowl and win. Super rare. Doesn't happen. Won't happen. Not expecting it to happen. I would love for it to happen, if we needed it to happen, but I don't want it to happen. I need JG16 in there all day, every day. So I don't care about the quarterback position per se. Outside of JG, I think that it is what it is. It's hard to find competent backups, and there's other backups that are available. If you absolutely needed to do something, I mean, the Lions could make a trade, and quite honestly, if they would just go trade for David Mills, please do. Please do. That's probably the smartest move, is to go get David Mills or Davis Mills, whatever the hell his name is. That's the quarterback that I really think can make a difference on your team. He was making a big difference last season. Yeah, so I don't even know why we're still talking about Cade. We're way past Cade. No one's hating on Cade. I think Cade's great. I think he's awesome. Next up, the roster shift, man. So what has Brad Holmes done in week 1? How has he helped this team? What do you look for out of your general manager every free agency period to give you a fighting chance that season? Every team is shooting for the Super Bowl. So are you. Did the Lions get younger or older? The roster mathematically shifted younger. That is exactly what Brad Holmes needed to do. By trading David Montgomery, releasing veteran tackle Taylor Decker, and allowing Anzalone, Khalif Raymond to secure other paydays on other teams, and also, releasing Graham Glasgow, the Detroit Lions cleared out an aging tier of this roster. That was exactly what was expected and needed to happen. They replaced those players with players like Cade Mays, who's 27, Isaiah Pacheco, who I believe is 27 or 28, McCreary, who's 26. So did they get better or worse? That's the next question. And I'm going to ask you that question now. Since 94% of you believe that Cade Mays is the starter, let's go with the most polarizing question of the day. Did the Detroit Lions get better or worse in 2026 week 1 free agency? And the reason why I asked that, and it's kind of hard to really establish it, but did we get better or worse on paper? We got younger. We got less injured. We got cheaper. But did we get better? Is Roger McCreary better than Amik Robertson? 1,000% yes. Did Amik do a lot for this team? He absolutely did. I wanted him locked up to a new deal last year. Partly because, when the fan inside me gets attached to a player, then I'm not doing my job. But, I got some heart for that kid, man. He was the lifeblood of this team when there was nothing left in that secondary, and he led that group into war and did some amazing things. The Legion of Whom, it was great for a couple of weeks, and then you kind of figured out who they were. I think Amik Robertson is going to be missed from that locker room, and I hope Roger McCreary carries that same balance of leadership and dynamic football play. Objectively thinking, losing a franchise left tackle in Taylor Decker and a defensive captain in Alex Anzalone kind of creates that immediate baseline drop of talent, and maybe your roster got worse. But the 2026 Lions at this exact moment, I think, are structurally thinner than they were in January. I think that even though that this was a calculated regression, they did not get worse by accident. I think that they executed a strategic roster cleansing to optimize the salary cap and aimed at bringing in players that could stabilize, reinvigorate, bring some new energy, and a different dynamic on film that now teams are going to have to reevaluate just who the Lions are in 2026. If you continue with the same roster every year, year in and year out, teams can figure you out. So every year, that's why you have 15, 20% roster attrition, partly because of salary cap. Also, you're trying to get better. You're also trying to get younger, but you're also trying to make the other teams guess a little bit. You want to keep them from figuring out just who you are and how you're going to utilize these new players in your system. So what's the analytical verdict? The other most glaring question or statement of the week. Has Brad Holmes done enough? I'm sure that many people are going to say no because they didn't get their edge rusher. Well, I got news for you. That was never going to happen. But yes, Brad Holmes has done enough. And I think the data dictates that Brad Holmes is operating flawlessly right now within his established parameter of draft, develop, re-sign, rinse, repeat, and not put your team in a deficit with the salary cap, manage the team out front, not from cap purgatory. You look at the teams that every year they spend a ton of money. They go into cap purgatory. And guess what happens the next season? They don't make it to the playoffs. They have to shed a bunch of players. And then they do it all over again. And then they don't go to the playoffs. They have to shed all those high-priced contracts. And they've built zero continuity. The Lions are operating from out front. I get it that fans are demanding massive external free agency spending and are completely ignoring the financial reality of the team's current contention window, right? If you believe in a window. I think Holmes refuses to overpay on the open market. I think that when you watched, Amik Robertson and Alex Anzalone secure extremely inflated contracts, although Anzalone had $0 guaranteed, at least that's what was reported immediately. I don't know if that still holds true today. I think it validates the strategy even more. Holmes is utilizing surgical, low-cost veteran acquisitions, second contract kind of guys. Pacheco, 1.1 or 1.81 million. Mays, 8.3 million. And you're filling out the 53-man roster going into the draft. It's the exact methodology that ensures that the Detroit Lions possess the maximum amount of cap space required to secure the massive impending contract extensions that will become due from the 2023 draft class. What are the 2026 draft implications because of the moves made in free agency? That's another question that I think a lot of analysts and fans are trying to figure out. Brad Holmes is conservative. He's been conservative in free agency for 6 years now. It's an approach that directly dictates their draft board. Taylor Decker's gone, right? To secure a premium day one starting left tackle in the draft is an absolute requirement today. It may not be by the time we get to the draft. Why? Well, the one name I haven't spoke about, Penei Sewell. The Lions right now have 4 right tackles. 4 right tackles at least on this depth chart. I'll show you what I mean. Hopefully you can see that good enough. I can make it probably 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps bigger. There we go. So right now on this depth chart, now it's according to ESPN, so it may not be 100% correct. You look at right tackle. You have Penei Sewell, Giovanni Manu, who is a swing tackle, Mason Miller, who played with Gray Zabel in 2024, brought in 2025. They have Larry Borum, who can play both sides. They have Devin Cochran, who more than likely won't be on this roster. He didn't have any snap counts in 2025. I don't think he had any snap counts in 2024, honestly. Let's find out. Oh, I'm sorry. He had 83 83 snaps at right tackle, 69 at left tackle in 2024. In 2025, he had nothing. So Devin Cochran is also a swing tackle, if you will. I'm going to use that term loosely today because he can play both sides. Let me get my piece of paper out. So if I'm going to go right tackle, who do we have available? Well, on the depth chart, we have Cochran. He's right tackle, left tackle, versatile. Larry Borom. I'll go back to 2021 with Larry Borom. He started out playing 546 snaps at right tackle. In 2022, .466 snaps out of the 573 at right tackle. 2023. So yesterday I was seeing people saying, well, I know what Giovanni Manu is now because they brought in Larry Borom to take his spot. Yep, pump the brakes on that one. In 2023, Larry Borom had 408 out of 475 snaps at left tackle. 2024. He had 295 out of the 341 snaps at left tackle. It's not a whole lot of snaps. It's barely a quarter of a season. And then in 2025, Larry Borom had 664 out of 728 snaps. Guess where? Right tackle. The other snaps were in special teams work. So Larry Borom is a right tackle. Can he play left? Absolutely. But where's he most comfortable? Clearly on the right side, where he's 3 out of 5 seasons in the NFL. Well, at least the last 3 out of 5 seasons. 3 out of the last 5 seasons. That's where he has played. Now, I get it that ESPN put him at left tackle. I don't know why. Giovanni Manu. Now, Giovanni Manu moonlighted at left tackle last season for one game, and he injured his knee. He put in 61 snaps at left tackle. In 2024, he didn't play a single snap. In 2023, he was in college. Now, I don't think they actually tracked. I don't think they actually tracked his usage at UBC on PFF. I'm pretty sure they didn't, but he was a left tackle at UBC. But where is he today at 6'7", 352 pounds, a smooth mover, giant mitts, long arms? Where does he most likely end up? Well, I would say left tackle is going to be his primary, but there is no reason why Giovanni Manu can't be a swing and or a right tackle if needed. So you have Larry Borom, Cochran, Mason Miller, in 2024 played 934 out of 1,049 snaps at right tackle. The other snaps were primarily at right guard for 20 snaps, and then the rest was in special teams work. Now, last season, Mason Miller didn't see the field. So you have Miller, Borum, and Cochran, all right tackles by trade. So none of those guys, again, I mean, Miller and Giovanni Manu are listed kind of right, I guess. And then you have guys like Miles Frazier. Now, Miles Frazier has been discussed as the potential to play right tackle and or left tackle. I'm going to go back and look. And let's go back to 2022 real quick. Let's see where he played. Left guard. He was a left guard in 2022, a little bit at left tackle, about a third of his snaps at right guard. So primary guard in 22. 2023, 100% of his snaps at right guard, rest in special teams. 2024, 839 snaps at right guard, a few snaps at right tackle. Now, does he have the requisite length, height, speed, all that good stuff? Yes, he does. At 6'5", 325 pounds with long arms, he absolutely can play out on the right side. So I'm going to put Miles Frazier as probably our fourth option as a right tackle. Now, he would be a crossover, right? He would be a guy that, in my opinion, it would need some significant work. But right now, this offense has multiple right tackles and only one peer left tackle, if you will, in Giovanni Manu. Larry Borum is moonlighted at, at both sides. So when I look at this roster, all I see is versatility. Juice Scruggs can play anywhere up and down the line. Christian Mahogany. Now, that is another player who I didn't look at the other day when I started thinking about some of this stuff. But I'm going to take a quick look at Christian Mahogany back in college. Real quick. Boston College, right? I think that's where he went. Yeah, Boston College. In 2023, right guard. Couple of snaps at left tackle, even more snaps at right tackle, 32. 2024, 2024, was he drafted in 24? He was drafted in 24. Let me go back to 2021. Right guard. 2020, left guard. So Mahogany's a guard, and he can play either side. So there you have it. We still need a true left tackle on this roster. We still need a true left tackle on this roster. So what happens if Penei Sewell moves to the left? And this is the exact conversation that I was trying to have the other day. If the Lions do decide to move Penei Sewell to the left, we have more than enough on the right side right now. Between Giovanni Manu, Mason Miller, Larry Borum, and Devin Cochran, those guys are going to fight it out. And I'm going to tell you right now that between Larry Borum and Giovanni Manu, one of them is probably going to win the job. But do not put Mason Miller on the back burner. I think that he'll still win a backup spot, would still reside on this roster or at least a practice squad. But there's some fight in that kid. And he's a primary right tackle, so he knows the position extremely well. But if Penei Sewell goes to left, then we have a log jam. A log jam on the right side. And we have a couple of guys that can play on the left side as well. Giovanni Manu can play on the left. Larry Borum can play on the left. So there's plenty of opportunity. So this means that going into the draft right now, this is where the draft implications come up. You lost Taylor Decker. He was an absolute requirement for the Lions, on the roster to not dictate which way the Lions really needed to go. The defensive line has kind of been untouched to a degree here in week 1. That could be a position that the Lions go with in round 1. Al-Qadi Muhammad's gone. You lost another, elder statesman, 31 years old or whatever he is. What is the draft implications? Well, this is where it gets unique. If Brad Holmes really drafts BPA, this is one of the weirdest drafts ever that is going to prove it out who Brad Holmes really is. Why do I say that? Because the players at the top of this draft are at positions that you don't draft this early. A linebacker at pick 3? But wait, potentially 3 linebackers? Or 2 linebackers and an edge at pick 2, 3, 4? You don't draft linebackers at pick 2 and 3 very often, right? These guys are in a different class. We don't have any quarterbacks, but one that should go in the top 10. But Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles just screwed everything up for everybody in a good way. Oh, but wait a second. Jeremiah Love, again, another position that is typically not drafted in the top 10. It just happens to be drafted there in 2023, where you had Bijan Robinson at 6 and you had Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. That hasn't happened in a while. If you look historically at the draft over the last 5-6 seasons, there hasn't been a whole lot of running backs drafted in the top 10, even the top 15. So there's 3 players at least, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, and Jeremiah Love, in the top of this draft. Oh, but wait, there's more. Kenyon Sadiq, the freak. I mean, this dude is probably going to be a top 10 pick. He's made, if it hasn't already come out, which I think it should have by now. I think I already dropped it. Let me just make sure. I don't care if I tell you early. Kenyon Sadiq. Oh, yeah, it's out. Just released. 9:31, 2 hours ago. Is number 8. Number 8 on my top 25 best players in the draft. You now have 4 players at the top of this top 10 that are typically not drafted in those positions. And so what does that do to the rest of the field? What happens now when it's Brad's turn to draft? Is he truly going to take BPA? Because BPA would tell you that if Kenyon Sadiq is there at 17 and he's the highest player on your board, well, the Lions just got a tight end in round 1. That's what it tells you. In a draft where really this left tackle class is thin, it's not like 2 seasons ago, I think it was, we had the Fashanus and the other players. Let me go back and look. Go back to 2023. You had 1, 2. You had 2 quarterbacks go in the top 10, and that's the most that we're kind of looking at this year. But you had Peter Skoronski. You had Darnell Wright. You had Paris Johnson. You had 3 top flight offensive linemen that deserve to be there. Now, have they all worked out? Maybe, maybe not. But even back then, you still had an elite defensive end going early at number 7, Tyree Wilson, which I wouldn't say he's totally worked out for the Raiders. Will Anderson, who was listed as an outside linebacker / edge, depending on what scheme you put him in, going at number 3. Anthony Richardson shit the bed, but that is what it is. Jalen Carter was clearly the best interior defensive tackle. And then, Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, Bijan Robinson at 6. kind of a weird draft. Go to 2024. Come on. There you go. Catch up. (2024) again, you had 1, 2. Come on. There we go. 2024, you had 3 quarterbacks go in the top 3. You had an elite wide receiver, and then you went offensive tackle, wide receiver, offensive tackle, another quarterback, another receiver, another quarterback, another offensive tackle, another quarterback, and then finally a tight end at 13. And then offensive tackle, then your first edge comes off the board. And then a defensive tackle, then edge, then it went, more defense. So each draft's been a little bit different, but primarily running backs and tight ends and linebackers do not go this early. So what that means for Brad Holmes is, who is he going to be picking at 25? Or picking at 17 in 2026? Because if he truly models his draft board as best player available, well, on my board at 17, not that it's right or better or any indifferent to anybody else, but my board at 17, my first go around at this was Caden Proctor. I'd love it. Be a great pick. And right now at 17, would be Jermod McCoy. Primarily because Caden Proctor moved up on my board. So there you go. This is going to be a weird draft, and I think the week 1 of free agency is not painted us into a box. Like, we're not pigeonholed on which players that we really need to draft, because this, our depth chart again, when you look at it from the top down, quarterback is good, running back is solid, wide receiver is set. You've got your starting 3. You've got 2 draft picks from last year. Tom Kennedy is back. You've held over Malik Cunningham, so you don't need a receiver. Our tight end position is solid. You've got 3 players right there that fit your 13 personnel with Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, Tyler Conklin, and then Zach Horton is a holdover. So you don't need any one of those players in the first round. I would love Kenyon Sadiq, but that's a different conversation for another day. Left tackle's probably the only premier position that you need in the first round for the offense. It could be a guard. It could be Emmanuel Pregnan. It could be Maxi Hanachor. I'd prefer to see those guys early in the second round if Brad moves up, but I would say left tackle is your premier position in the first round. Let's go to the defensive side of the football. Well, now this is where it gets weird. Right now, not everybody is on this list, but Malcolm Rodriguez is your starting will linebacker. That's a problem. Aiden Hutchinson is your starting left defensive end. Tyler Lacey, Ahmed Hassanin are your starting right defensive ends. One of them two. I'd say that's a problem. Unless they can somehow snag AJ Epinesa still. I haven't seen if he's gone yet. That would solidify the edge position going into the draft. Our linebackers starting 2, Jack and Derek, are solid. We definitely need a will linebacker, and we do need to supplement with another Mike linebacker and another Sam linebacker. Our cornerback depth is actually pretty decent. DJ Reed back up with Rock Yassin. Right cornerback Terrion Arnold and Roger McCreary. That's solid. Now, our back end, our 5 and 6, Khalil Dorsey and Nick Whiteside, I'd say that's kind of a problem. At nickelback, I think that's where you're probably going to see Christian Izzian and or Roger McCreary. And so I would say that our nickelback is good. So we need another corner. I definitely want another safety. We need a will linebacker. We need a defensive end. Those and a left tackle. Those are the 5 premium positions right now that you're looking at in this draft. Now, I said this during the week. I think what Brad has been doing is shaping up to be an 85% or 80 to 90% defensive draft. I think he's going all in on defense. I think if we get a left tackle, great. I think we need one. We have to have one. There's nobody left in free agency that matters, to me at least. And when you look at this, I think that you're finally going to see Brad Holmes make the fan base happy by going all in on defense in the draft, which is going to secure your defense to be one of the youngest defenses in the league. Should be healthy, right? And if we believe in the 25 years old is geriatric now, for ligaments, which I've been thinking about that now every day. You want to keep your team as young as possible. And rotating these guys in and out a little bit more, I think that Brad and Dan need to do. I think that they need to not hold on to positions and players or players at certain positions for longer than 3 or 4 seasons. We need more roster turnover outside of the guys that you have to keep, you should keep, or you kind of have to keep because you've signed them to big deals. But to me, this looks like it looks like Brad's going to be doing defense, and that's going to keep us young. It's going to keep us competitive, high energy, and hopefully healthier. So where a lot of people are saying that they think that Brad is failing, no, Brad is setting this up to be able to go defensive heavy, where we've had the most attrition to injuries, because that is where the older players have been put on this team, on defense. It's time to get young. It's time to go all in on defense, and I think he's going to do it in the draft. Hopefully, it makes sense. Hopefully, it makes sense. So with that, I'm done for the day. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to try to turn that into our first episode. I'm going to have to do some cutting, but try to turn that into my first episode of the podcast this year. Let's look at some comments. So Panay has to move. We still need a good right tackle. Yeah, we're solid at right tackle. We have way too many guys at the right side. So the only way that changes is if you get two linemen in the draft. MD Gladiator says Howie Roseman has 2 Super Bowl wins with 2 different coaches and quarterbacks, so let's not even compare. Clearly, you don't pay attention, and I'm not going to go through that all over again. Howie Roseman, it took him 8 seasons to win a Super Bowl, and they missed the playoffs 4 times before they won a Super Bowl. Brad Holmes is already ahead of that curve. So go do some research, or better yet, just pay attention. I guess I'm just going to have to do a video about it. That way it's always there, and I can just refer you to the video, because I'm not going to go over it all the time. It's pointless. Our O-line is definitely sneaky good. And the reason why is exactly what I said back in December, that when Brad is going to be irresponsible or would be irresponsible by letting any of those guys be the bona fide starters and you don't go into this year with competition, that would be irresponsible. Now, Christian Mahogany was one of the top-rated left guards in his rookie season, albeit 2 games, and he was one of the top-rated left guards in the game when he was healthy last year. So either do some research or, I don't know, maybe stop listening to people that don't do research. I don't know what else to tell you. But right now we have one of the deepest offensive lines in the game. We just need a starter on the left side. And or, since this draft is loaded with right tackles, if Panay does move to left, then we could get a starter on the right side. Either way, this line would be extremely deep and ready to go. Let me give you a couple of more quotes from other analysts around the league. Sean Windsor of the Detroit Free Press said, with Taylor Decker and Graham Glasgow moving on, Brad Holmes must do something he hasn't. Build the Lions O-line himself. The interior infrastructure that carried this offense is officially turning over, and Holmes is utilizing cost-controlled free agency to secure the foundation before the draft. Huh. Sounds like he's in tune with what I'm saying. How about Dave Burkett? Let's see what he had to say. Says, Detroit really had to find a center in free agency, but they couldn't afford to swing big on Tyler Linderbaum. They get Cade Mays as a consolation, and a nice one at that. Mays provides an answer to Detroit's question of whether to put Tate Ratledge in at center. No need. Colton Pouncey said, quote, assessing the Lions 2020 or 22 unrestricted free agents meant tough calls ahead on defense. Alex Anzalone leaving felt like an inevitable result of the Lions' cap woes, in addition to how much they like both Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes in their linebacker room. They are preserving space to manage massive future extensions. And I'll go back to Field Yates when he says, when you evaluate the first wave of the 2026 free agency, the Detroit Lions' approach to the center position is a masterclass in roster efficiency, paying Cade Mays $8.3 million annually while holding Juice Scruggs and Seth McLaughlin provides them absolute leverage. They are not beholden to a single player. They built an entire interior depth chart for the price that some teams are paying for one starting guard. So to answer, again, your question about Mahogany, okay, if Mahogany and Frazier aren't starters and Juice Scruggs doesn't beat out Cade Mays at center, now you've got Juice Scruggs to contend with at left or right guard. Well, it ain't going to be right guard because that's Tate Ratledge. So now you have Juice Scruggs, Christian Mahogany, and Miles Frazier all contending for left guard. And I would say out of those three, go tell me another team that one has that deep of a roster, or two, are there 15 guards better than those three on a team? Tell me which 15 or 20 guards are better than those three, especially given, that this offensive line is going to be from left to right, mostly different. Outside of Tate Ratledge and Penei Sewell, it's going to be mostly different for starting guards, and a huge turnover that completely elevated the type of and kind of player that they have on this roster now. I have no idea what you're talking about with Chip Kelly. What does Chip Kelly have to do with anything? TJ Parker and Anthony Hill with the first two picks. Anthony Hill. So you might want to go do some research on Anthony Hill. From the research that I've done, this is, and Anthony Hill's like somewhere in the third. He's definitely not a second round pick. He'll be somewhere in the third round. So if you were to take Anthony Hill, that would be about a 40 spot reach, or probably about 42 spot reach. If Anthony Hill goes in the second round, I'd be extremely surprised. But Anthony Hill, he has some limitations. So some of the research that I've done on him, he's not a big hitter. I can tell you that. He's not a big hitter. Let me close some of this down here. Need to free up my screen. We do need a linebacker. The question is where, because if it's not early, the rest of the linebackers in this class are terrible. And I say terrible from the perspective of being like a starting will linebacker terrible. Anthony Hill has requisite arms at 32 3/8 inch. He has decent sized hands. He's 6'2". He's 238 pounds. He ran a 4.51, so he definitely has the speed. I mean, everything about him that I could see: good explosion. He's got good speed, good explosion, short area burst and quickness, lateral speed, sideline to sideline. He can do all that. That stuff I'm not as worried about. But where things start to get sticky is he's not a good coverage guy. And so if you're looking at bringing in someone like Anthony Hill, who's, in my opinion, probably going to be more of an interior linebacker. He primarily played on the interior at Texas. Let me just pull up the rest of my stuff on him here. One sec. I watched the Georgia game, and I think in the Georgia game he was outside a little bit more than usual. And I think he picked off one ball in this game where he did show really good hip movement, ability to kind of flip, turn. But he's primarily been... He might have had 2 picks last year. I think one came against Duke. I mean, great hands. I'll say that. He's got great hands. He can get after the passer, too, if he's utilized off the edge and if he's actually sent. I guess it just really depends on where teams see him, being more utilized, either interior or exterior. And a lot of alignments, he's been on the interior. As a matter of fact, Texas defense. So Texas rolls quite often with only 2 linebackers. And that kind of gives you that, I guess, that idea that he's going to be an outside linebacker. But in a 4-3 scheme, I think he's more interior. And quite honestly, I think he'd fit better in Derek Barnes' position than he would taking over for Alex Anzalone. If you're looking for pure depth and backup and someone that they could give you a really good option, as a really good backup, special teams, and as an interior defender to give Jack Campbell a break. I mean, he's not going to be a Mike. I don't see that. I see him more in a 3-4 interior linebacker than I do 4-3 outside linebacker, if that makes sense. I think there's something there, but my earliest work on him was not the greatest. Anybody else? And I do think we'll get an edge in this draft. I do. I just don't think it's going to be early. I don't think it's going to be early. If you get a chance, check over, or, check DetroitFootballJournal.com. I've now put out a top 50 1.0. Here's a link here if you want to visit. That's Kenyon Sadiq. I've also put out my top 25. The rest of them are all dropping today. So I still have 7 more to go. They're all written. They're just releasing like every couple hours. And so we still have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, wait. I think another one just dropped. Nope, it didn't. Anyway, check out DetroitFootballJournal.com. That's where you're going to see a lot of my high-level overviews. I call them snapshots, player profile snapshots, on my top 25 board. And we do now have a chat all built in on the Substack. So if you'd like to join the chat, it's open to everybody that is subscribed to DetroitFootballJournal.com, which is free. You can sign up for a free account, and then I'm upgrading everybody for 6 months at no charge. So that's 6 months of savings to you. And we're also going to be in another publication that I believe is dropping today. Make sure you pay attention to all 22 as he drops some information today, and then hopefully this week we'll be doing our secondary release on Rockhound Detroit Lions. So with that, I really don't have much else to add to your day today. I've got about 25 videos to record today. I tried to get some of them done yesterday. I did a few, but I got a lot of videos to record. So I will catch you guys all in the next one. Maybe we'll do another wrap up tonight if anything pops, but I'm not really expecting a ton. I would love to see AJ Epinesa. Let me just do one more quick search here. So it looks like Jalen Phillips, Trey Hendrickson, Odafe Owe, Boy Mafi. Those are the last ones to be recorded. John Franklin Myers. Cordell Flott. Odafe, Jalen Phillips. So I think I still see that AJ Epinesa is available. Yep, he is. So on the available list right now, I'll show you this too. Might as well. On the available list for edge, if you're still looking for edge for Detroit, Hassan Reddick, not a fit. Joey Bosa, God, I hope not. Leonard Floyd, I'll pass. Danico Autry, hard pass. Yurder Gross Matos, that's an interesting one to me. Not 100% sold on him. I did like him a couple of seasons ago. I think before he went to San Francisco. Former second round pick. Probably looking for $9 million a year, which is less, or a little bit, maybe less than what El-Kadi Muhammad was just paid, but not by much. So I would say that the Lions are probably out on something like that. Too much money. He made 7.4 last year. He's probably looking for that $9 million payday. You've got Michael Dana. Now, this one does intrigue me a little bit. simply because let me pull him up. I'm going to verify his size one more time. He's 6'2", 257 pounds. Now, last year he only had 1 sack. I do not believe he played a whole lot. Yeah, 389 snaps. So he's like that high rotational guy. It would be similar to an AQM, but he had like 0 impact last year for the Kansas City Chiefs. 0 impact really in 2024. In 2023 was okay. He's just been an average player, but I think on the right team with the right opportunity, Dana, if he was cheap enough, I think he could help stabilize the unit, but I don't think he's going to come out and just bang away and get you a bunch of production. I don't see that. If he had a better run defense grade, then I would say okay. My number one guy is still my number one guy, and that is AJ Epinesa. He's only 27 and a half years old. He's probably looking for, that 2 years over 16, probably somewhere in that $8 million range. Statistically, I think that he's going to give you more production-wise. I think he's going to give you more. Not that we need a bunch of sacks. That's not the end-all, be-all. I like what he does in the run game. He can definitely hit that hard edge and lock it up. I have some videos on my channel about AJ Epinesa. 2025 was a down year for him. He was also behind Joey Bosa. 2024, I mean, it was marginal. But then again, 613 snaps. I wish he would have had a better season. Produced 6 sacks, and you know what? If he gets 6 or 7 sacks on this team, I think he can be more. I think that AJ Epinesa could be more valuable on the Lions than any other team he's been on. You have Aiden on the other side, that takes some attention, but Tyreek Williams is going to be going into his second year where teams are going to have to give him a lot of attention. Ali McNeil's going to be healthy this year. Teams are going to have to give him a lot of attention, and with both of those guys next to each other, those are your starting 2 right now is Tyreek and Aleem and Aiden. Tell me an offensive line that's going to be able to handle those 3. And now if you throw AJ Epinesa into the mix with Jack Campbell surveying the middle and Roger McCreary down in the nickel potentially, or Christian Izzian down in the nickel, giving you some of that pass rush upside off the corner, I think that's where the Lions are going to go to this year. I think that you're going to see a lot more corner blitz, nickel blitz, and even safety blitz, and we're going to be less involved in that single high safety look. And if that's the case, and a guy like AJ Epinesa is going to be able to fill and fit in the run game, create a hard edge, and then give you pass rush upside when needed, but teams are not going to know where we're coming from this year. I am all bought in on the fact that Calvin Shepard's going to take this defense to the next level. I think that they followed in the footsteps of Aaron Glenn last season. They try to keep it the same with a little bit of difference. But this year, I think we're backing way off a man. We're going to do a little bit more zone, and that's going to give us an opportunity to fire our corners and safeties and nickels more often, or even our outside linebackers more often when you have a better front 4 than I think that we've had. I mean, DJ Reader was good, but he didn't have any pass rush upside. But now you got a guy like Tyreek Williams that is going to command double teams, will also give you pass rush upside that has been underutilized. And Ali McNeil, we know, can get into the backfield. So a guy like AJ Epinesa, he may not, stun you in the statistical game, but there's more to his game than just stats. Just like there's more to some players. Like DJ Reader, for instance, he's not a stat eater, right? He allows the guys next to him, behind him, benefit from his work. And AJ Epinesa is that kind of a guy, but I also believe in his ability to get after the quarterback. He needs to have a clear number 1 shot. And to be honest with you, don't even sell yourself short on the fact Marcus Davenport's coming back. Here, that should get everybody hyped up for the day. Good old Marcus Davenport's coming back.
Derek Barnes, I see you 55. That's a big-time play.
Oh, and then there's Derek Barnes, because there's no pass rush upside at all.
That is a big-time stop by that defense.
Marcus Davenport. What else? I don't really see anybody else on this list that screams Detroit Lion. I mean, look how old all these guys are. Here, let's just go by age. Look at this. Von Miller, 37 or 36. Cam Jordan, 36. Danico Autry, 35. Kyle Van Noy, 34. Leonard Floyd, 33. Jadeveon Clowney, 33. Emmanuel Ogbah, 32. Dante Fowler, 31. Hassan Reddick, 31. Tyquan Lewis, 31. I mean, a lot of these guys you're going to be able to get probably week 4, 5, 6. Marcus Davenport, turning 30. Oh, there's Clelin Ferrell. That's another name that not a whole lot of people attribute to a pass rush, but he is someone that can provide a hard edge. 4 sacks each of the last 3 seasons, fairly consistent. He's only been operating on an average of about 350 snaps per year. 471, 369, 250. 250 snaps with 4 sacks is production. It's production. That's efficiency. If he would play 1,000 snap season, that would be 12 sacks. Or I'm sorry, that'd be 16 sacks. So you bump his production up a little bit by bumping up his snap load a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if Clelin Ferrell is on Brad Holmes' short list right now. I really wouldn't be surprised. I have not looked into injuries, but at $4.7 million, a 2-year, $9 million deal, those are the kind of deals that I see Brad Holmes doing right now. No, J-Rod is in here today. Just for everybody wondering, I'm not J-Rod. In case you were wondering, J-Rod, you want to call in? Let me know in the chat if you want to call in. Yeah, J-Rod's not a bot. Just let me know so I can turn the phones on. Tomorrow morning? Okay. All right. I only do calls for members, Buster. So on specific days like this, pop-up calls, I do calls for members. It's part of why they're a member. Rogers, we don't need the big name, high cost options. We need production. There you go. There you go. I believe the same thing, brother. I believe the same thing. Clelin Ferrell, this is where I was here. Yeah, there's nobody else on this list. I mean, just this is a shit list. And everybody else that went already were a lot more expensive. A lot more expensive. So the guys that were signed, I mean, let's look at the guys that were signed and what they were signed to. Jalen Phillips got 4 years at $120 million. There's no way we're going to do that. Trey Hendrickson, 4 years, 112. Odafe Owe, 4 years at 100. Boye Mafe, 3 years at 60. Kwity Paye, 3 years at 48. Bradley Chubb, 3 years at 43. Draymond Jones, 3 at 36. Joseph Osayi, 3 at 34. Arden Key. This is where we start to get into the potential dollar amounts. Yeah, J-Rod, you don't have to throw a $20 donation out there to verify who you are. I can't believe people think that I would have an alternate name. Like, if you think that I have time to go into other, like, first of all, I don't even watch anybody. If I watch people, it's like Rich Eisen, Colin Cowherd, people that have great things to say, honest things to say. I don't waste my time with the junk that's out there. But yeah, if people really think that I have time to do that, then you clearly don't know what type of an entrepreneur I am. I ain't got time. I ain't got time for little kids games, man. I'm not, I graduated high school, 26 years ago, whatever it was now. 28 years ago. I don't remember. 98. Yeah, certain days, Buster, certain days it's pay to play. I mean, if all you are is negative, we just do things like this, buddy. See ya. Adios, Buster Scruggs. We ain't got time for you. Hey, it's Jessica says, do you think it's crazy for the Lions to place their bets on a round one left tackle? Or does that say tackle? Tackle. No, I don't. I don't. I don't think it's crazy. I think that the biggest the biggest conversation that we have had to date has been tackle. And I know that there's a lot of other people out there that push edge, but tackle in this draft is hot and then gone on the left side. Right tackle is a little bit different. I think it's a little bit deeper. And I'm still not even out on guard. Like, something tells me, guys like Emmanuel Pregnon and Maxi Hanachor, they have so much upside that they could come in and totally reset what we're doing at guard play. It's just not at right guard, not with Tate Ratledge. And I think that, guys like Maxi Hanachor could potentially, let me get this off the screen. Could potentially get Max pulled up. Kind of hard to spell his name. I think he played some where's he at? Here we go. Not what I wanted. Let me go back to O-line. Where is he at? Anyway, out on the right side, right tackle. I thought he played some guard. Nope, he didn't. Thinking of somebody else. He's probably one of the best pure right tackles in this game, and he has like no mileage. He's only been playing football like 5 years, and he's this good? How is he this good, and he's only been playing football for such a short amount of time? I could see Brad taking on a player like that. I know a lot of people would think it's a project, but if you watch that Panini Bowl game, you watched him go in and just totally control the line of scrimmage. And he was getting up into that second, third, driving downfield, staying, trying to stay behind the running back, but getting downfield, making blocks. And that's the reason why in that Panini game, they were able to win and score early, because the run game was the only thing that was working. The pass game was not happening. Not in that wind. I'm not totally out on the fact that left tackle could be our first pick with somebody like Caden Proctor. To a lesser degree, do I believe that players like Here, let me just pull them all up. Like Fano, another right tackle. I don't believe that that's the answer unless you're moving Penei Sewell to the left. Like, you don't bring in a right tackle and put him out on the left. Like, that's just, I know it sounds great in theory, but go and just do research for yourself and look at how many right tackles have come into the league and then be pushed to the left side. Unless you have a left-armed quarterback, then that doesn't make any sense. But there's really not many left-armed quarterbacks. Maybe one. I think there's one in the league. Monroe Freeling. I mean, he's another guy that is a left tackle. He's a purist. He can play right tackle a little bit. But I'm not sold. I'm not sold on his size. I think that he's too light. I think his legs are too thin. And his anchor is going to suffer. I think he's going to get pushed around a little. He plays a real high pad level at times. Blake Miller, another right tackle purist. That's a guy that I don't see moving to left, and I think it would be a mistake. So it's what I've been trying to get people to understand about this draft. Like, if you're taking someone like Francis Mauigoa, that's another right tackle. Yeah, he's great. He's phenomenal. But he's a right tackle. So you'd have to move Penei to left. Only because he's already played left tackle. But being at the right side now for 5 seasons, I think that that's an irresponsible mistake to make. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction that they would make if they had to. But we have way too many right tackles already on this roster, and therefore I think that the move in round 1, if the Lions are able to move up and down this board at least a little bit, it's grabbing that left tackle of the future. Now, who could that be? Well, if it's not Caden Proctor, it could be Caleb Lomu early in the second round if the Lions were to move up to like 33. But then again, maybe the Lions would want to move back from 17 if the players that they valued the most are gone. Remember what I was saying earlier, this is a draft where it's going to test your BPA. If you're truly a BPA GM, this draft is going to test that. If he sticks and picks at 17, he's going to take Caden Proctor. And if he's not, I don't see an edge outside of a guy like Akeem Messidor that is going to give you immediate play on year 1. He is a high floor player, meaning he's coming into the league better than your average edge player is because he's older. He's been playing for like 6 seasons now, I think. I think he has like 6 seasons in or something crazy like that. And I think that if he comes in, he's going to give you a lot better play year 1, but that's also a player you're not signing to a second contract because he'll be 29, 30 years old. I think 29 by the time his second contract is due. But I'm not taking a player like that in the first round. Like I wouldn't. As much as I think Akeem Messidor is able to give you, better edge play on day 1, I have a hard time taking, that player at 17. Now, I would trade back and take him. I would trade back and add an early day 2 option in round 2, then take him, in the first round, as long as that early day 2 will bear fruit with the left tackle. If they get left tackle and an edge on the first 2 picks, I'm good. If they get a dynamic outside linebacker and a left tackle in the first 2 picks, I'm good. I think that those are the players that you're looking at the most. However, I'm not going to put Brad out of driving, all the way up to the top 6, 7 picks in grabbing the next best linebacker to ever play the game, which could be Sonny Styles. It could be, I don't know that you would take the edge there, even though, Bailey would be incredible. Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, those linebackers are game changers. I think that CJ Allen, in his combine results, what they told me is that at 31.5-inch arms, he has just barely met the requisite length for arm length to be able to contend with the bigger tight ends. He'll be able to stick with some of the running backs arm length wise, but my biggest question is his speed. He didn't test. He didn't do any agility drills. I don't know who he is. So I don't know if he, when Georgia's pro day is. I was going to go to some pro days this year. We'll see if I can do it. I may not be going to the draft. We'll see. I don't want to get sick again. And I'm still sick now. Upcoming pro days, where are we at? March 15. You got Arizona, Syracuse, Washington tomorrow. Northwestern, Oregon. Oregon tomorrow. 17th, excuse me. South Carolina, Virginia. On the 18th, you have Georgia, Minnesota, Mississippi, Penn State, Stanford. Maybe on March 18th, I drive down to Penn State. The 19th, you have Michigan State. I might try to get over there. California, Memphis, North Dakota, Western Michigan. 20th, you got BYU, Michigan, Missouri. Where is Georgia? Did they already have theirs? They did on March. No, that's Georgia State. 18th. So that'll be Wednesday, right? 16, 17. Yeah, Wednesday this week, Georgia has their pro day. So if he runs, which I'm hoping he runs, then that'll give me some more answers. That's why 3.0 of my top 25 will come out like beginning of April. And that's where I start to get a better idea of who these players are. I can't believe it's already 12:30. What time did we start this? 9:30? Yeah, Styles and Reese are just, they're just different. They are just different. So Mike P asked about Miller. So with Miller, I don't know if I already answered that. I might have. I think I answered that. That looks like it's an older message. All right, T-Web. See you, man. Have a good day. So is MD Gladiator, are you in media? Or are you going as a fan? I don't know if they allow fans in. I don't know who E. Rowland is. Says we literally have no second die right now. Hassan is technically practice squad. If you're talking about Ahmed Hassanin, he's not technically practice squad. He's on the 53 right now. And last year he was brought back and stayed where he was because he was a free agent and was not going to go anywhere. Ahmed Hassanin was developing nicely last year, and quite honestly, he'll be your third overall edge on this team right now. Even without us having the next, starter opposite of Aiden, I would say at a minimum, as long as he progresses the way that he was, he'll be the third overall edge. Could end up being the starting right defensive end if all goes well. He has to stay healthy this year. But anyway, back to linebackers. I'm not sold on CJ Allen. I'm not. You got to get back to this. The other linebackers in this draft, like Jacob Rodriguez, I know a lot of people are high on him. And I think what happens is when fans are doing these PFF mock drafts, well, it just so happens that Jacob Rodriguez somehow, he lands to 50. And so everyone starts picking him at 50 because we need a linebacker, right? But you're picking him and taking him and saying you want this guy because that's just where he's landing. But you need to go look at who he played against, number one. You have to look at his level of competition. Two, you have to consider the fact that this is college, not NFL. I'm going to say this like I always do every year. The worst player or the best player that you went up against in college is now the absolute worst player that you're going to go up against at the NFL. So you take the best offensive lineman that you win against in college, and that'll be the worst level of player you're going to see in the NFL. Totally different game here. I mean, there is levels upon levels upon levels. And what you do in college does not translate to the NFL. It never does. It rarely does. For instance, a lot of you were out on Nick Scorton because he didn't have production in his last year at Texas Tech, but you failed to realize that Texas Tech utilized a different defensive scheme. But at Purdue, Nick Scorton was the Big Ten edge rusher, pass rusher of the year. He had the most sacks, I think 10 or 12 or whatever it was at Purdue. And then he went to Texas Tech or to A&M, whatever it was. And he didn't have production because they have so many guys on that defense that they do things differently there. They don't ask their guys just to go after the quarterback. Scheme is everything. Texas A&M, excuse me. It was one of them. So scheme is everything. You go and look at Jacob Rodriguez's arm length. He's sub 31-inch arms. He's got decent sized hands, but he's only 6'1". To me, he's another Malcolm Rodriguez, not just because they have the same last name, but he's another Malcolm Rodriguez. He's he's going to develop into a good backup. I mean, Malcolm jumped out the gym, at the combine. I mean, he impressed everybody, but he also has 30 and an eighth inch arms. 5'11" at 232 pounds. Jacob Rodriguez is 30 and 7/8 inch arms, so a half inch more. He's 2 inches taller. He's about the same weight, has smaller hands. Malcolm jumped almost a 40-inch vertical, 10-foot broad. I mean, that's insane. Jacob jumped 38.5-inch with a 10-foot broad, so almost even. 4.57 40. Malcolm ran a 4.52 40. It's the exact same player from an agility standpoint. But I just don't see where Jacob Rodriguez is our answer to the will linebacker position. When I look at his snap counts and I look at where he played in the box, which does not tell me that he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to survive and not get erased on the outside. I thought I was done, but I guess not. If I go back to the film review, let me pull up my notes. Let's see. One of the games was it Kansas? It might have been Kansas. I know I watched that game. He had a nice peanut punch in that game. He had a couple of nice rips. Couple of really nice hits. I mean, the guy he's a peanut puncher, don't get me wrong. He's a master at it. I love that part of his game where he's always thinking about ripping the ball out and creating turnovers. That's just what he does. I know he had at least one, if not two interceptions last year. Now, he's a high energy, high effort player, but from where are my damn notes? But he primarily plays out of the middle. And so if he's another interior linebacker, then okay, it's an immediate backup to Jack Campbell. And then that part I do love, but I just don't love that pick at 50 when we need a will linebacker that can make big plays and in coverage. What I see out of Jacob Rodriguez is, yeah, he's a ball hawk. He's a peanut puncher. He's a great tackler. He's always putting himself in a position to win. He does a lot of things right. He's got decent speed. He triggers downhill nice. But the coverage, I need to see more coverage out of Jacob Rodriguez to be able to say that at pick 50, I would be comfortable with that. Because if he can't cover, then everything else he does doesn't matter because he's not going to be in the middle of our defense. Jack Campbell is. Does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense. So moving forward, the other linebackers, you got Jake Golday. Now, he did play more on the outside. The only issue with Jake is there is major mixed reviews on him, but from a coverage standpoint, he does have plenty of coverage snaps that I was able to evaluate, and his coverage grade is pretty solid. His run defense grade is great. His missed tackle rate is low. He split his time between box and slot. Jake Golday is a guy that I would probably target, and you'd have to target him at 50. But then there's also another guy by the name of Malachi Lawrence. And then I'm totally going to rattle your brain with this next guy. But Malachi Lawrence, Josiah Trotter was the next linebacker on the list. I'm out on him. He can't cover at all, period. His coverage is terrible. I believe Kyle Lewis, he might have a little short arm syndrome if I'm not mistaken. And don't get me wrong, these guys don't have to have 33-inch arms to play linebacker, but I prefer to, for guys to have longer arms because it helps at the catch point. It helps when you're tackling, all those things. He has good size arms, and he's 6 foot, 220 pounds, so his requisite size. I prefer my linebackers, especially as a Sam or a Will, to be in that 6'2" range. I like a little bit taller, longer guys. That's just me. Now, that may not be Brad Holmes' MO. I think that Brad goes after the football player and less after size, which I would too, right? I think the football player, the film is the most important. But outside of that, if I'm going to compare 4 or 5 guys, if you're building a shopping cart and you're comparing everything, I would say that the number one guy on my list is going to be a little bit longer, a little bit taller, probably that 230-pound range, with at least 4.5, sub 4.55 speed, a 37-inch plus, 36-inch plus in the vert. 10-foot broad is like bare minimum to me because I need to see that explosion, that lateral, and spatial quickness. But if you can't cover, then I'm out. Like, I need guys that can cover if I'm getting a Sam or a Will linebacker, especially in our style of a defense. So Kyle Lewis is another one. Again, just not totally sold on some of these guys. So the linebacker class is going to get hot and heavy early, and then it disappears. I do not want to see a guy like, Bryce Bocher. I get it. He's fun to watch, but he is extremely small. He is so compact that's not going to help us at all. Who else are we talking about? I saw a couple other names in here. Yeah, I do believe that Caden Proctor is. Do me a favor, Lloyd. Put your questions in caps. That way I can see it too. But I do believe that Caden Proctor is a starter at left tackle. I do. Now, I had a private, short conversation with him out in the hallway at the combine. I happened to catch him as he was walking. Now, teams have asked him about playing guard. He doesn't want to play guard. And here, let me give you my workup on him, and that way, you can read it for yourself. Here you go. Here's my workup on Caden. I think that he has a unique opportunity at the next level. I think that teams that are concerned about his weight, they're going to throw him in at guard. If he manages his weight, which he's been doing, then he's going to be a dominant left tackle. My God, if he drops down to 340, 345, he's just going to get that much quicker. And his first, his set steps, he's going to be able to get lateral a lot faster. The thing about Caden is he is so wide. His wingspan, his hand size, his broadness. I mean, you can't get around the guy. And to have someone that massive on the left side, not only is he going to protect Jared, but with the left guards that we have and how big they are, it's going to be pretty tough for a defensive end or a 5-tech, 3-tech to be able to knife through those guys and to be able to get at Jared through the middle. They're going to have to take a path to the outside. And look, all Jared needs is 2.7, 2.6, 2.5 seconds anyway. Caden Proctor is able to do that. He only had a couple of reps that he lost, and that was to Cassius Howell. And that was when he was at 370 pounds. He was a little bit slow, so speed beat him. But when he gets down to 350, 352, he plays his best football. You're talking a 20-pound difference in weight loss and even a tenth of a second in speed, but it's the lateral movement from left to right or right to left that improved the most. And that's what I noticed as he lost weight laterally from inside out. He was able to set a very wide anchor quick. And then if he's got these giant arms, all he has to do is get that arm in front of you and pop your shoulder a little bit. And then that gets you off your bull rush. And he sometimes he lets guys get in him, and that's okay because he's so big, you're not getting out. He wants you to come in so he can latch on that plate and you're done. When guys get inside and he gets his hands on you, the rep is over. It's over. So I love Caden at 17. I'm not so sure he's going to be there. If he continues to impress, when was Alabama's pro day? One of these days, I just got to get down south for about a week and just go to a few pro days. That's coming up on Thursday. So whatever happens on Thursday, I think that'll kind of tell us where he's going to finally end up. But yeah, Caden Proctor absolutely is someone that I expect to be there potentially for the Lions at pick 17. And I would expect for them to take it because he is the truest, purest left tackle in this class. What else? What are the other players that we could get at 50? Oh, Malachi Lawrence. And then, okay, so let me finish on Cassius Howell before I forget. So I know a lot of people like Cassius Howell, and they like him in the first round because he's fast. He's got, chiseled abs, right? They see all these pictures of this dude all ripped up. Okay, that's all great. That's all great. And he ran extremely well. But 30 and a quarter inch arms? What are we talking about here? He's the exact problem that I see when you could put him in the same conversation as Ruben Bain. I might be the only one thinking that Ruben Bain is going to slip outside the top 10 and could potentially end up in day 2. But slipping outside the top 10, I think, is highly likely because his arm length is the 0th percentile, and there has never been a sub 31-inch arm that has a 10-plus sack season in the last 20 seasons since 1999. There's a reason why arm length matters. There's a reason why 33 inches are the threshold for not only edge, but also tackle. The longer you are, the easier it is for you to paint that arc, right? And then latch onto that plate, and for an edge to stab that shoulder and to knock that tackle back while you're dipping and ripping around the side. So for somebody like Cassius Howell that has 30 and a quarter inch arms, he has to beat you with speed. But if you can be as fast as you want, if there's no hole, if you've got a guy that's 350 pounds standing in front of you that's, wide like a school bus, how are you going to get inside? You can't. And if you can't move him because you're 120 pounds lighter, your rep is done. It's over. Now, you might be able to beat a couple of tackles at the next level. Every dog has his day, right? Every squirrel finds a nut. Cassius Howell is an outside linebacker to me. I think he needs to drop 10 pounds. I don't think his coverage is any good because I don't think he's really asked to do that. Matter of fact, I know he's not asked to do that. So he doesn't really have a coverage grade to look at. And he didn't play, linebacker, outside linebacker at Texas A&M. But if he has any ability, I don't know if any scouts have asked him to do any coverage reps. And I haven't spoken to any scouts about Cassius Howell. I spoke to a few players when I was down in Indy. And I've spoken to a few here while I was on the phone this week working up all of my my top 25. If he can cover, I think Cassius Howell is a perfect outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme that can play up on the line off ball. You could kick him outside. Yeah, you could absolutely use him as a speed end. You could put him in the wide 9 if you really wanted to and try to beat everybody with speed. He could be the next, Micah Parsons-esque, but, look at where Micah Parsons lines up. Micah Parsons lines up as an outside linebacker, and he tries to, maul and take advantage of those guards, right? That he tries to slide through, through the C gap. That's where he tries to do his primary damage, is flying through the offensive line. Now, if you overload a defense or if you overload an offensive line and you create a gap, that is where players like Cassius Howell and Micah Parsons do their best work. You do stunts and twists in front, and then all of a sudden a gap opens and you get right through. So I think Cassius Howell projects to me more like a 3-4 outside linebacker. I don't think that's going to fit as a 4-3 Sam or a 4-3 Will. Totally different. So I don't think that he's going to end up as a line. And if he did, then they have different plans for him. And it's not going to be on the edge. He might be utilized on the edge at times, but not primarily. I can't see it. He's too small. His arms are way too short. I need to measure my arms because I've always felt like I have long arms, but I'm curious. I am curious. I know that when I measure for my dress shirts, I have to wear 36 inch, but I don't think my arms are 36 inches. I used to have a 19 and a half inch neck. I think it's a little bit smaller than that now. I got the linebacker neck. That's why it's all compact. My shoulders used to be like up to here back in the day. So Bane doesn't win with length. He wins with lower body and his torque. Yeah, he has good torque and power. His arm length will drop him a little bit, but I think he's still a top 15. Yep, Howell wins with the dip and rip speed. I agree with that. Yeah, Bane is he's the bane of the NFL, man. He's the bane of what scouts don't want to have to deal with, because whatever scout is telling their team to go draft this guy, they're probably walking on pins and needles right now. He played a lot on the outside last year. I think probably 85% of his snaps were on the outside, and and at the next level, I worry about the arm length. He's got great size, 6'3", 270. Here, let's look him up. You know what? Here, I'll do you one better. I'll just open up my my post. Where did I put Bane this week? I know I dropped him, but how far did I drop him? Here he is. 13. That's where I got him. 13. There you go. There's Ruben Bain. Here's what I got on Ruben Bain. 6'2" 1/4", 263, 9 1/8 hands, 30 7/8 arms, so sub 31. His wingspan did help his functional length a little bit. His ape index was 1.05. And for those of you that are not familiar with ape index, you take your wingspan, you divide it by your height in inches, it spits out a number. The requisite ape index to even be an NFL player is 1.02. Like, that is the absolute minimum at all positions, which gives you about 1.5 inches to 2 inches above your height. So if you're 6 foot, you're 72 inches, your wingspan better be 74 inches, right? At least the average among almost all humans walking the earth is about 2 inches wingspan above height. So when you start to get into the 105s, you're at the average, depending on the position. For an edge, I mean, you're barely making it into the average. My T-TAPS, which is a proprietary system that I built to mathematically, categorically evaluate players based on height, weight, speed, and other analytics and measurements and agility scores, has been extremely accurate as to where they're drafted and how they perform at the next level. But I weighted all of these guys against the best to ever do it, because why else would I do anything different? I want to know where you rank, right, compared to the Reggie Whites. I want to know where you rank to the Aaron Donalds. I want to know where you rank against the best of the best to ever play the game. And in doing so, you get a very wide swath of information. Aaron Donald was small. No one thought that he was going to be able to do it, but he did it. So he has to be included in that list. Myles Garrett, I mean, he is everybody's dream of an edge, but he's at the very tippy top of the scale. TJ Watt, again, at the very tippy top of the scale. JJ Watt, just a little bit under. Or no, JJ Watt, tippy top of the scale. TJ Watt, just a little bit under. So those are the kinds of guys that I weigh these guys against, and that's where I come up, with a lot of my information. But Bain, when he arrived in Indianapolis, he was a consensus top 5 lock. And then after delivering what was considered a masterclass in 25 on tape, 9.5 sacks, 23.5% win rate. He operated pure violence. I mean, relentless motor, collapsed the pocket routinely. College, right? College. Attacks the line of scrimmage with aggressive, low center of gravity approach. He established himself as one of the most statistically productive, dominant, and highly evaluated collegiate edge defenders in the country against both the run and the pass. But then he opted out of the agility portion of the combine. So it kind of left all of us, scouts included, media members included, like, who is he? Because he didn't finish telling us the story. So he left us kind of focused, at least for myself, entirely on the measuring tape. And that really delivered what I called a knockout blow to his draft stock, because at 6'2", his arms officially measured at the historically short 30 7/8 inches. It plunged him down to that 0th percentile for edge length. And then his ape index, like I said, it proves that he has the technically proportional, or functional length for his frame, but that arm length falls massively short of the 33-inch league threshold. And you might even be able to get down into 32.5 inches, but 33 is it for edge and tackle in my book. So he is now in the danger zone. And then in a league where, long-limbed offensive tackles really dictate those terms of engagement, that severe lack of extension, it guarantees that elite pass protectors can first touch that chest plate, effectively steering and kind of stalling his momentum, if you will, where he can't really launch a counter strike. So that physical deficit, it's already contributed to an alarming 18.8 missed tackle rate. And those two things, believe it or not, are in the same bed together. Arm length and tackle rate. I went on to say that no edge rusher with sub 31-inch arms has had a double-digit sack season in over 2 decades. Now, despite all those physical limitations, he still wins with, and this was pun intended, sawed-off leverage, heavy hands, and a level of pure aggression that really cannot be taught. I mean, he has all of the intangibles in the world. Gennaro Felici of the NFL.com said that, quote, Bain's an accomplished squatty-bodied grinder who just posted an FBS best 83 pressures. He fully showcased his violent game-wrecking ability. Matt Miller of ESPN said, quote, Bain would have the shortest arms for an edge rusher drafted in the first round since 99. So, all things considered, looks like I got to fix a couple of things here. Glad I pulled this up. All things considered, who is Bain? I don't know. I don't know because I wouldn't draft him. I wouldn't. I know he's going to be a great football player, but to what extent is he going to be an edge rusher? That's the biggest question I think everyone is trying to figure out. Where is he going to play? How much impact is he going to have when your arm length is going to keep you subjugated to bigger tackles and bigger guards? I think what it does is I think it squarely puts him in the conversation of a defense that is multiple, a defense that is flexible, and a defense that uses a lot of games. So a defense that is consistently using twists and stunts, you are giving him more opportunity that way. If you are playing a lot of games up front, that is going to find Bain a hole. And when he finds a hole, he's going to be able to knife through it and get to the quarterback. The pressures. Now, I know that we'll have to have this conversation again. That's funny, Brent. Man, I am still spitting stuff out of my lungs. I know that we're going to have this conversation again, but pressures do not excite me. You can have the most pressures in the league, which we've seen this time and time again. They're not winning Super Bowls. There's a big disparity between what pressures were 15 to even 20 years ago into what pressures are today. It should be alarming. Let me do this. I might have to do some more digging. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it right away. I'm not. So back in the day, pressures had 3 or 4 categories, maybe 5. Quick pressure was the only way that you defined a player. If you're able to get to the quarterback in under 2.5 seconds, that it used to be 2.25. Now it's 2.5. No, I'm sorry. 2.5. Now it's 3 seconds, I think, for PFF. 3 seconds. A whole half a second more is a quick pressure. That's crazy. So you go and weigh what players did in the early 2000s, into 2010, the 20 teens, and now look, since PFF has been out, how the pressure numbers have changed. They have gone way up. And that is not because they're better players. It is not because they're getting more pressure. It's because they added 15 more pressure metrics. It's by design to sell you more fantasy football, is what it is. It's to sell you that player is better than what they really are. So from what I understand, some of the scouts that I've asked these questions to, they don't look at all of these crazy pressure numbers. What they look at is the film. And they look at how many times this quarterback was affected by that defensive end or that defensive tackle and how many times per game. Nobody cares. I'm going to use Aiden, so don't hate me. Aiden had, 6 or 7 quarterback hits or something like that in the last few games of the season. But go look at what a quarterback hit is and how they're recorded. When the quarterback falls to the ground and you are the defensive end that's in the closest proximity, you get rewarded with what's called a quarterback hit. Even if the ball's been out and you push the quarterback and then he falls to the ground, you get a quarterback hit. So in the stat line, that looks amazing. But in the sense of how it affected the game, it did absolutely nothing. So take stats with a grain of salt. The stats are not designed to win games. They are designed to sell you on an idea. And that is why you see some of the best players to ever play the game were not statistical icons in college. Right? They some of the guys that barely had any stats in college went on to be some of the best football players the league's ever seen. Your game has to fit today's game. And I am not one to just, vote the guy with the most stats in as the best football player. That would be irresponsible by me. So I look at how stats have changed over the last 20 years, and it's, I have to say, the only reason why is because of gambling, prop bets, and fantasy football. That's it. That's why they've changed. That's why there's more. That's why there's 50 ways to get different stats. And you're paying $5 a month for every single one of them. Shame on you. I do too. Yeah, so Brent says, pressure show the player won his job on a play. Finishing with a sack or a TFL requires more factors to happen. Yeah, I would agree. And I would also say that pressures are not created equally. Because you can get recorded as a pressure, or what you get recorded as a pressure may have done absolutely nothing on the play. For instance, and we'll have to take this to another day because I really got to go. I'm on like 2 hours longer than I was. But it's just marathon week this week, man. Fantasy football. Free agency. We'll be doing it every year. We'll do fantasy, or we'll do marathon week. I'm going to have to come back to this too because I can't find, I knew I should have saved this. I can't find my pressure stats, but I'll have to dig into PFF and see what they say because they have a bunch of stuff in there. But anyway, we were talking about Bane. Look, I think this guy is limited. I think he's limited because he doesn't have long arms. I think he's, there's high upside to him, but what is it? So in my opinion, like I said, my projection is, Evaluators are completely split on how Bain translates to the next level, while the raw film suggests he can be a highly productive 3-4 outside linebacker. The pre-combine hype was crowning him the next James Harrison already, and that's all significantly cooled. Without verified athletic testing to offset his historical length deficiencies, taking Bain in the top 10 is an incredibly high-stakes gamble. There is a precedent for hope. Players like Marcus Golden, who measured in with 31 and an 1/8 inch arms, so a whole inch longer, prove that condensed edge defenders can carve out highly productive careers on Sundays, but it's exceptionally rare. I am hesitant to keep him in the top 10. I'm not confident he even stays in the first round long term. The top 20 pick makes far more sense, but for this week's grading, which was this week, the tape alone keeps him inside the top 15 at 13. If teams believe he can slide inside to mall guards with pure low center of gravity power, then Bain will be a highly disrupted force in 2026. But outside of that, like I said, it's rare. So anyway, good conversations today. Glad that we've been able to uncover quite a few different conversations that have been happening throughout the NFL and as well as throughout our Lions, fan base. Do me a favor, we're going to get the mailbag pumping again. Mailbag at rockdown.com. Now's the time. Start filling me up with your ideas. See, Gunner's saying it's time to go too. Start filling me up with your ideas for content. We're going to get back to doing some night shows throughout the off season. We've got the draft coming up here in about a month and a week, whatever it is, 6 weeks. And we've got a lot to talk about with draft picks. So I've kind of pumped the great brakes, on doing mock drafts, but we're going to start getting into some of that once I get the rest of this stuff released. We'll start having some fun. We're going to slowly figure out what Brad Holmes is doing and on to the next one. So we'll see you guys later on tomorrow morning, if not later on today. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.